How's it going? It's Man Tomorrow here. I want to thank you guys for coming through on this Saturday afternoon. Got another interview with a black conservative tonight. We're going to be having DC Codebreaker's Paradox. Paradox been around this space for a long time, and during this series, bringing on most of these conservatives that we see in the space, so that way people can understand that the actual conservative piece that's been hijacked by the professional YouTube class of personnel ain't really what's happening with actual conservatives, especially like business minded conservatives and all that kind of other stuff. Because like you never see like the Larry Elders or the Candace Owens kind of piece around other people. Like you don't see that. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to know what's actually going on and then move ahead on with the actual thing. So without further ado, hold on a second. What's going on, Paradox? What's going on, man? Paradox, are you there? If you're talking, I cannot hear you.
What's going on? Coming from the outer rim.
Yeah. First time on the show, man. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I really think like conservatism just have been hijacked, by the, like the relationship class of personnel. And no one really understands, like, it, it's always the people who always get like all the shine are the Candace Owens and the Larry Elders and the
Hmm.
Thomas Souls, people who you shouldn't be paying attention to when it comes to conservatism. However, and it's like they don't live in like the South or places where that type of conservatism will really affect your entire life. That's why they're in these big ass liberal cities playing that type of conservative method actor. I guess that's a better
Yeah.
way of putting it.
Well, it always disturbs me when I see Fox News, who live in New York, talk crazy. It's just a strange
That's
thing
what
to
I'm
watch
saying. It's like
over the
these
years.
people are in 30 Rock. What are you
Right.
talking about?
Strange. And have dinner with each other all the time.
Yes,
Yeah. $1,000 dinners for that matter.
yes.
That is a
And
fact.
yeah, and it's like most of these media people are friends behind the scenes.
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Yeah.
like you
I've
didn't know
always
that
waited.
Don Lemon and like Tucker Carlson were quote unquote friends.
Yeah, absolutely. You talking about the upper class.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
people don't understand that it is a class argument.
Yeah.
The conservatism thing is a class argument, which is why they don't worry about people that are not within the class, people who don't have a family, people who don't have things to lose, people who don't have their stuff together for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
But
challenge, even for myself,
yeah,
to try to understand that from a interpreting class, and also trying to manage high class poverty, and then when you interject race, and then all of the what do you call it, all of the buzzwords that activate us emotionally,
correct,
and how they sort of, what I'm saying, how they sort of play on that.
correct, and it's the same playbook, like
For
since the
sure.
Civil War.
Yeah,
It's
for
like
sure.
it's the same playbook from the same people from the same areas, and you have poor people acting like they rich, rich
Yes.
people acting like they poor, people not understanding how the budget works. People think that, oh, our grandchildren are gonna be paying off this debt. It's like, no, that's
We're
literally
never
not
we're
ever
never
how it
paying
works.
that debt anyway, but
Yeah, yeah, that's what it
that's a
is.
different conversation. Yeah, yeah, that's never
but
being paid, but
but they're always worried about the deficit and the debt when the Democrats are in office. But when the Republicans are in office, starting wars and running up, nobody gives a shit about that.
running up
Period.
enormous debt.
Debt the
And,
next
and
administration is restrained in budgetary decisions because of the last administration's running the shit up. Like I
hmm
don't understand it.
yeah, the Republicans break it, the Democrats fix it.
Correct.
That's how it
And
goes.
yeah, I mean, if you go from second Bush, Clinton,
Hmm.
Bush, Obama, Trump, now it's probably going to be Biden. But it is. We gave away the actual budget surplus. People tend to
Hmm.
forget about that.
I remember it like it was yesterday. And I
Yeah,
just knew that George Bush was going to make that budget, expand the budget, make more cuts. pay off some bills, and did the absolute opposite.
And
More
nobody
government
said
than we've
anything.
ever had in our life, less freedom than we've ever had in our life, surveillance state, loss of so many different rights with the Patriot Act, and
Yes.
budget busting. Absolutely. And he's a
Well, here's a,
criminal on top of that and should be arrested.
yes.
Him, Cheney, Condi, all of them
Yeah.
for war
And
crimes.
it's like what people don't understand, like the confiscation of guns that they are afraid of, that happened during the Bush administration during Hurricane Katrina.
Hmm.
That actually did happen on the ground. Everybody ignored it. The NRA ignored it. Everybody ignored it.
Yeah.
But all the gun sales happened under Obama when he wasn't doing any of that. Like I just don't.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
black
get it, man.
that's that fear race. They can leverage it. Like you said, there's points you can leverage. And you're gonna take if you as a politician, I think you have to take advantage of it. And
Especially,
if I can create fear, if I can create fear and get you to activate, that's what you're gonna do, I think.
yeah, but it's an emotional argument for like on the Democratic side too, when they try to use this reparations thing as an actual emotional hostage when it's something that you're supposed to work towards legislatively, not as a one-off, but every single concession that you get from your government is actual reparations.
Yeah.
But you have the same people asking the same questions all the time, and they're never held to any type of standard of
Hmm.
learning the information and stop asking these day one ass questions like you just fucking got here.
Hmm.
So for the actual conservative piece, like how do you stand out as like, because you know when people hear that you're a conservative, all of a sudden the apprehension goes up, the blood pressure goes up, they think you're about to Tate them out or ABL out on them, and it's like, nah, I can really get with someone what this guy's saying. So how come these other people get all the shine and no one really knows what your type of conservatism is? Like, how do you break through that?
I don't, man. I can't. I don't know if I can answer that question. I mean, I've been the conservative my whole life, just about. So I mean, I don't. I'm used to it, obviously, and I've always, I mean, for my whole life, I've always gotten pushback on any ideas that sounds anything like a Republican position. Every job, every career, every business, it's been very consistent with that. We have a certain mindset, and like you said, people are appealing to people to get followers or to get votes or to get clicks. So people are going to say a lot of things that sort of I think fit sort of their stream of consciousness. So
Oh, okay.
if you deviate off that stream of consciousness, you're gonna be they're gonna push you up. They're gonna really just kind of push you out, and you're gonna kind of be in a no man's land on some level.
Yeah,
If you stick to those talking points, and as they adjust and evolve over time, and you keep yourself sort of aligned, then of course you would get the attention that you're looking for. But even when Trump ran, as an example, even when he ran for office, a lot of Republicans stopped being Republicans. They started saying that I'm an independent, right? So
they did it after
they
Bush too,
jumped
man.
they jumped ship.
They did it after Bush left, and then
Bush's problem, really, I mean, really economically, probably more than anything, is that he did not do anything for poor white people. To keep
he
it
didn't,
simple, he sold a store. He
and
sold a story.
he was trying to privatize Social Security. That's
Yes,
what really lost him a lot of shit. Like I
yeah.
don't know why he would try that at that particular point in time. I don't know what's the actual. Uh,
I wanted my money back, but I got you though. I wasn't mad at that policy, but that's my personal opinion on that one.
yeah,
But I know
I
that
mean,
he was gonna get punished for it though.
yeah, I mean, but if that would have went with the lockbox idea with that Al Gore had back in the day, we wouldn't even be having this conversation about Social Security. I mean, you know, we spent the shit on the Iraq War.
Yeah, yeah, several trillion dollars.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's definitely for sure.
like it's so
They're
messed
not.
up that
They're not being from a You know, I know you get into ideology, you get into the academics of it. I know it can get more complex. A lot of different definitions for what a conservative is, or all the different people who fall under the Republican umbrella, etc. You know, but fundamentally, a lot of the people who run for office, and even from a presidential perspective, they tend to not follow those principles though, because the pressures of the government and where we are as a country, I think, is a lot different than some of the belief systems that exist.
Correct. It's not like hard and in stone. Like
Mhm.
I live, where I live at. The whole area is military industrial complex the fuck out. So
Mhm.
you're not going to be a Democrat from like the Denver metro area with like you know with the golf balls at Buckley or Fort Carson or the Air Force Academy, dude. You're not walking in there talking about cutting defense spending. You're just not walking in there talking about that shit.
No,
Democrat or Republican, you're not
can't do
talking
it.
about that. I mean, because everybody who lives in Littleton, Highlands Ranch, where do you think all that wealth came from? The military
Yeah,
industrial complex.
yeah,
Like, where do
that
you think
trillion
those
dollars a
people
year,
work? Yeah.
guaranteed.
It's like, bro, like,
And the same in
why
this
you have to
area,
pick
a
up
lot of
this?
wealth in this area, 50%, maybe a little bit more, government contracts. Outside of just government
Yes.
stuff, just locking in those contracts. And if you work in those spaces, and I worked in those spaces, you're not saying you're not going to have no politics in those offices. By the way,
No,
we're about to
you're
we're about
not.
to get what contract is on the way. Oh, okay, Yeah, so it gets tricky. Some of that can get tricky when we're talking about real life and doing business versus ideologies. Two different things. And I tell people
Yeah.
that all the time is that I can have fundamental beliefs that I am not changing. Right? I'm not going to be a Democrat. I'm not going to be a liberal or progressive, even though I agree with parts of the things that they say, and I disagree with a lot of things that the right says. But fundamentally, it's just not possible for me
No, that's cool.
at the end
It's
at the
just
end of the
that
day.
it's as long as we can come together, discuss what's actually on the table that is being passed, that isn't being passed, and actually we're going to galvanize behind this. You galvanize behind it
Right.
this way. No, as long as we can still coordinate and actually execute, I don't think it really matters where you are politically.
Yeah.
I just don't think so. I mean, because
No, there's some things that, as they say, bridge too far. But outside of that bridge too far, I work with everybody anyway. And I'm very flexible, and I'm not obviously. I can't. I think it's almost impossible to be really hard right from a race perspective. I think it's almost I think it's an impossibility, to be honest with you. But somebody might say it is possible. You're not going to be able to go that far just because of some of the beliefs, which I think aren't even. There's something else going on with that stuff, and it's not even economics either. By the way, it's other ideas about nationalism and saving people's groups and what they look like and stuff, and not really getting to the business.
all right. So since we're on the third rail issue, kind of later on in the conversation, but since we're here, hold on a second. Let's give a shout out to the people who showed up. What's going on? Port Chopper Fire, Cynical One, Going 11, Jay Shine Randoms, Charles Merchant, and Sean Davis. All right. So, what is a bridge too far for you?
I, I I'm not. I don't even want to talk about it. You just we
Okay.
know
All
what it.
right.
I mean, we know all of the
Yeah.
different. Everybody has positions. So it's tricky because we was even talking about it earlier. It's just tricky that individually is one thing, and then what are you willing to sacrifice for the whole? And then when I say the whole, how do I identify that? Do I identify that as an American? What does that mean? Either globalization, even though we're going to deglobalize, but even globalization or even nativism, or do I look at it from a race perspective or even a gender perspective? So
I mean, like we can actually like as much as people complain about the immigration issue, like the
yeah, we need
immigration
we need
issue,
immigrants. We need immigrants. That's not even a conversation. It has to happen. It's not an option. But
of course. I mean,
yeah, the
because
country will
like
fall apart without immigration. So it's an absolute necessity, in my
what's
opinion.
going on? What's going on, Louis Kanye? What's going on, Truth? As I know it. What's going on?
Yeah.
What's
We're
going on,
even short. We
Sean?
probably need
And
closer to 2.5 million immigrants. I think we're probably around 100, 1.5 or 1.8. So we're still short. We need actually more people here, actually.
correct. What people don't understand is those people get here, they get the skills, and they plug in the holes in our actual business economy when
They're
they
the
come here.
economic engine. They have to be here.
Correct.
You do
I mean,
not have
because
a
you can't
country
get.
without immigration, period.
Yeah, because there's going to be people who's going to be hungrier to get in those positions versus the people that's already here, and they don't
If you want
understand
a
that.
modern economy, you do. Or you can go move to Saudi Arabia. But yeah, if you want a modern economy, you want to continue to advance, be more technology savvy, have a much bigger economy, much more robust economy, a safer country. You have to do that. The only issue
Yes.
that I have with immigration is just how somewhat how it's implemented. That's all.
Yeah,
So
I think even the HB1 visa conversation,
mhm,
it's still kind of iffy because you always hear this shit from non-productive people who are not skilled up. Like you don't like that's a legitimate conversation. The people who went to school and wasted all this time for a specific actual skill, and now they're actually getting kind of usurped. Like Quest did this back in the day.
mhm,
Level Three did this shit. Lucent Technology, like any company that's a big company in the Denver metro area has done this. They have
mhm,
taken away all the SQL programmers and they hired these dudes from India. They paid for them an actual apartment, upscale apartment, walking distance away from the actual building, and then they took away all the six-figure jobs and gave it to Indians.
mhm,
That
and pay them
shit
half the
actually
money
did
probably
happen.
too.
Yeah, oh, a fifth of what the fuck they was
Yeah,
paying us.
yeah.
And so
I'm
then,
not.
you know,
I'm torn because I'm not. I'm not. I mean, America set up globalization and made us the biggest, most baddest country in the world, right?
yeah, brain drain. Yeah,
Now
yeah.
the now so we now as a citizen or as a consumer, I've enjoyed it. I've taken advantage of it. The more I learn about it, obviously historically we don't like it because basically those people are basically slaves for the most part. So it's
Yes.
unfortunate in a lot of ways, but we benefited from it. So it is what it is. If a company decides, small business or not, decides to leverage their opportunities and exploit China, exploit India or Taiwan or whatever, I don't have an issue with it until it becomes one, right? And so how do you balance the two? Where I'm going to probably be undercut by immigrants or by even having my engineers in India.
Yeah, and it's like, what's going on, DC Codebreakers? What's going on, Ike? That's coming through. All right. So what I think is that the reason why we can't have discussions like this is because people are too afraid to say, "I just don't know what the fuck's going on. Catch me up." A
True.
real specific sentence, real small and short. But see, most of this stuff is about peacocking and buck dancing online, and running through like the Ultimate Warrior from fucking like WWE and like jumping in the ring and hitting the link and getting your shit off. It's like, bro, listen. At the end of the day, man, these are simplistic issues that we have to discuss so that way we can be able to coordinate and execute like other groups of people. I'm around other groups of people. I'm invited in when they need my perspective on certain things that they're trying to get
Hmm.
off the ground. Outside of that, you'll never hear them talk about politics in front of outsiders. Ever.
I will say one challenge with being an American is having access to a lot of information, or no,
Yes.
and have a challenge maybe interpreting it or understanding it. I consider our system very complicated and very complex, and because of that, there's so many moving parts. It can frustrate people, and you can sometimes see that come out on the internet. I think sometimes because it's hard to understand. Historically, this doesn't necessarily apply to Black people per se, but historically, where we would say, made in America, it's about America, let's build, let's do X, Y, and Z, right? And we had small access to some of that, but that was an American idea to motivate us, right? To make us, build our country up, make us, what do you call it? Just make us more engaged, right?
Yes. I
But
mean, it's
but
supposed to.
right, it's supposed to, right? But once you globalize, they're gonna be negative consequences to that.
Yes.
And so you're going to have a percentage of people that's going to fall out. And that's where you're going to get people who maybe come online or whatever they're doing to sort of complain about it, but not understand the business. But if you work in corporations, you would understand it a lot easier, no matter how uninformed you are, because you know that business decisions are having to be made because the market moves a quarter point. So I may have to cut 1,500 people. You understand that, but you have to extrapolate that out to the whole country. And so if I can compete and hire people from overseas because the government policies have allowed it, how do you get people to understand it and adjust to it? Because it's going to be unfair. You're not going to be
Yes.
happy about it. And you're not
Yes.
going to understand how you're going to benefit from it. And as a
That's the other
politician,
point.
I'm going to
Yes.
exploit you off of that point. You're going to be emotional.
Correct. Because they see the 50 million spent in Chicago for people sleeping on floors.
Right.
but they
So what does
don't
that
see
do?
the 3 billion that's actually spent on you to have a safer society.
Mm,
So that way you ain't got to worry about those people sleeping on floors.
right, right.
I set your way up. Thanks for
But
the ten
but but
dollars
I
super sticker.
but I think
Go,
as
go ahead, man.
but like you said, I think politically though, I can charge you up emotionally about it, and that's
Oh,
why you're
absolutely.
seeing certain people who didn't have a nativist position all of a sudden has one, because you can't hate the country and now love the country. You got to pick which one is it. So if I can move you emotionally however I want to move you, I'm not gonna let people tell me what I should or shouldn't be when I'm watching the same people that they talk about flip in an instance because of a political strategy that the right did by busing folks to those places to make you respond that way.
Yeah, I think that's trafficking. They should have been locked up the first time they did that shit.
For sure.
But I just don't think the Democrats got the political will to start putting people in prison like they're supposed to.
I
Just
they have put themselves from that what you just said, they have put themselves nationally in a tough spot because I don't know if they have a move.
not with this. I
I
mean,
don't know what the
because
move is.
I mean, the dude sent immigrants to California, knowing that those people were going to be driving through the actual what was it, Category 2 at some point once they hit Southern California.
Uh-huh.
He knew those people were going to be actually being bussed through that shit
Mm-hmm.
and did it anyway. Dude, that's a criminal act, dude. That's a criminal act. Like he should have got that off one time. Like when he sent those people to Martha's Vineyard, that should have been
Mm-hmm.
the last time he did that shit.
Mm-hmm.
The last time. But
That's
but
how you
when
see
you
but you get to see
keep
the
allowing these
politics on
people to
that
keep
though,
doing
right?
stuff, yeah.
But you get to see
I mean,
my
because they
point is
want
you get to see the
to.
you get to see the
It
politics.
is. It is because it's two pronged. You got the Republicans get their shit off about get these immigrants out of here, and
Uh-huh.
then you got the Democrats who be like, oh, we're so welcome to everybody. Oh, well, we'll find a place for these people when they get here. So that's the political thing that you got on both sides that are
They
going there.
took them out
But
of
I don't think,
Martha's Vineyard and moved them to
yeah,
the hood, bro.
no, of course they was going to do
They
that.
show that's not my only issue with Democrats. And I'm not talking about regular people. The elite people are playing the game. And it was very interesting to watch them expose themselves and not really being punished yet politically by the left as far as regular folks. Like they're not. I don't think regular people know what to say or what to think. They don't yet know how to digest it because I think they're waiting for the powers that be to do whatever they're going to do before they have an opinion about it because they don't know what to say. I haven't heard anybody say anything. I haven't seen no protest. I haven't seen anything about helping, controlling. Why would you make them leave? Why couldn't they stay in your houses? It's silence about that. And I think that the Republicans knew that was going to happen most likely. Is
No,
that
I
I
mean they
know these
understand the
rich
system like
liberals do
everybody
not
else.
want these people here, and they're going to dump them somewhere. And to me, black people in those hoods and Latino people in those hoods should really think about that. That's sometimes my concern with the left, as far as the elite, is the games that they play when it comes to poverty. How they really look at people who aren't like them when it really comes down to it. That's one thing that you will hear, by the way, by Southern Republicans. You ever heard them tend to say things like, well, white liberals don't live around non-white people. They live up in those areas where it's just them. But they have a whole lot of policies for other people, but they don't even live around those people necessarily.
Yeah, like all that scratch ticket and lotto money go to fucking private schools that don't even help regular school districts.
Right.
Like bullshit like that. That people don't know that you're literally funding private schools whenever you're playing the lottery. But at the end of the day, most of the poor people are actually scratching. Doing all that stuff, and all that stuff can clearly be coming to their actual quote unquote community, by the way.
Same with
And
defund the police is another one, a simple
yeah,
example of even that. I don't know how widespread it was, but they would interview people in different parts that are economically depressed, and they're like, yeah, we kind of need more protection. I know that's a hot button because we can make another argument for that, of course, but just on its face, it's like, we need protection. So you guys in those suburbs and you guys living in these rich neighborhoods, I mean, what do you? Of course, you don't necessarily need that much protection. But why would you take that from us? You can make those things better, of course. Obviously, you can put more controls in place, more training, etc. But they probably need more protection. I was literally just I was just in a space over the weekend looking at bullet holes in a house, right? And the entire area is on lockdown. Cops are everywhere because a lot of things are getting ready. Some things are getting ready to happen in that area. They're going to be pretty violent. Some things are going on with some conflicts with some people, and so the entire area is quiet. This is a very aggressive, very loud place, and a lot of people are hanging out every day. But um, people in those spaces would obviously need more protection, not obviously not less protection. So
Yeah, it's just like what Jay Shine saying. Obviously, if those people come to Chicago, obviously they get that funding. Obviously, they start working. They're going to go for the
but
lowest
they've
real
been
estate
getting it.
around.
But they've been getting it.
Yeah,
Immigration people who come in this country have been getting all this stuff for forever since we've existed, basically.
and this is why I keep saying that we should have been produced our way
We're
out of this shit to where we just own the real estate and just ship them in, and 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 we getting the money versus the shit being filtered through like different church and nonprofit organizations,
right.
them getting the money and not really doing anything for these
The
actual
bare
people.
minimum. The bare
Bare
minimum.
minimum, bare minimum. Like I didn't know about this system at all until I became homeless and a
Hmm.
homeless vet at that. I seen the millions of dollars that was going into this shit and how they was pretty much housing us and where the fuck ever places. Why these motherfuckers was getting like millions of dollars on this shit. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. They get all this money for actual homeless motherfuckers and they don't even try to keep well, actually they tried to keep me because I wasn't on drugs and I
Hmm.
wasn't real fucked up on alcohol. So they were trying to do everything that they can to make sure that I stayed homeless. But I didn't want to like live in some facility, tend to a room. Fuck that. You know, I didn't want
Right.
to be in that situation longer than I needed to. You know, reorienting myself got out of that situation. But it was an eye opening thing about how that actually worked though.
And I think sometimes politically, you would say, well, the Republicans would not help you at all, and at least the Democrats or policies that are more left leaning will provide some help. I also wonder from a political perspective, the Republicans have designated the left to do those things, so they don't even have to engage it. That's what they
Correct.
do over there. That's where I think some of the political trickery happens when people are talking about who's doing what for whom. When I understand it, or I look at it as well, it definitely appears that the Democratic wing is used for certain things and Republican wing is used for certain things.
Correct.
You know.
I can deal with that. Yeah, true as I know it, you're right. Because like a lot of those people, once they got nationalized by Reagan, they all went into the military industrial complex.
Hmm.
Most of those people did do that for the government. So you had like these super duper. I'm talking about once they became once they became actual citizens, they
Hmm.
became white Americans right away. They didn't give a shit about people who didn't have their stuff together in the Latino community. They're like, look, I work for the military industrial complex. I'm a white man. I don't know what you're talking about when it comes to people not having their papers right. That's on them. That's clearly how they was
Right. And
looking
I
at it.
want to say and from you have 62 million Latinos in this country, maybe 10 to 15 million identify as white, and then you maybe have another 7 or 8 million who are probably illegal, maybe something around that number. And I know those numbers ebbs and flows year over year, but the way they behave politically, I'm trying to understand as much as I can. I'm trying to learn as much as I can as about it, just because of one instance when Rachel Maddow in the MSNBC channel was showing what they had framed kids in cages, even though Obama also had them in cages, of course. But when Trump they was trying to put pressure on Trump about the immigration issues that were down at the borders, and they had showed some images of the kids being in cages and saying they wasn't getting water, whatever it was, right? All the political stuff.
Yeah,
But what I noticed, what I was waiting for, and I was waiting for it. I really thought it was going to be a Latino American uprising, and they was going to be onboarded on the political platform and start to take positions. It was crickets.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
and I'm making a point about that. I'm just trying to understand, does it make sense to stay quiet, keep your head down, and get what you can get and work with that? or is it better to be very loud when you don't have the numbers?
No, well, here's the thing about that, because
And half of them vote Democrat, 60% vote Democrat too. On top of that,
yeah, like I'm in Denver, obviously a sanctuary city, correct?
hmm
Dude, if you don't want to fucking work, nobody gives a fuck about you. Period. Period. Like you're only gonna have a certain amount of time on those beds. They're gonna put you with a work crew. They're gonna try to get you some training. Most of it paid for by the state of Colorado, and if not, paid for by the you know, their people trained, but the government give them money to actually train their people. Like we could do the same shit, right? Or it was done at the black church. It was done like that too. Those individuals
yeah,
who didn't want to be productive or actually stay down with that, they was kicked out. Your ass was in someone's kitchen, living in somebody's place, and that's just the way it was. Like they didn't really give a shit about people who didn't want to produce.
yeah,
And that's the thing. Like they don't want to rock the boat because people who get productive and get their shit together, they kind of just follow the ebb and flow of shit, and they're not trying to fight for people who are not actually working. They're trying to make sure that it is a production based business model because you can still get bank accounts, driver's licenses, all that type of shit in Colorado,
definitely in
right?
this state, definitely in Maryland. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's at the end of the day, they don't want to end up fighting for people so that way they can create this kind of black American loser class motherfuckers who sit around and complain about shit but don't participate in anything. That's how come they don't. Well, that's their perspective of how come they don't fight for other people. Because once they're out of that situation, they got out of it by working their way out of it. They're just not going to give people a way out of it without them going through the actual hazing process of actually being productive. That's what they think on that. And I've
and
heard
and
that
they,
shit from like a lot of people in that situation.
well, they also they put out a lot of data, right? We have 40 million white people, maybe 60 that don't work, shiftless and don't do nothing,
Yeah.
right? 40 plus million, maybe closer to 80 million actually, but at least 40 million. The question is, what do you do with those people? How do you handle those people, right? Like you said, you push them out, you move them out, you throw them some money, and you keep things moving. You can't do much with them, and you can't retrain or reactivate people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, etc. So
No,
the
you can't.
government clearly has to absorb all of that cost. And like you said, politically, that's where I think it can get trickier because how do you deal? Because black poverty, Latino poverty, Asian poverty, etc., is a very small percentage relative to their numbers. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? So who's sucking up the resources? Who's doing what? By far, it's not even close, in my opinion. Not even close. And so, how do you deal with the people in this country that once? Because I think once you break those economic systems historically, you have to absorb it. Europe does. Europe is dealing with it right now. Spain,
Yes, they are.
Portugal, Italy, France, England, Germany, etc. They're dealing with it right. They're trying to figure. I mean, they're figuring it out by just loading you up with whatever resources you need, trying to give you free everything to try to just deal with it. Because I don't think there's a way. Well, no one yet, in my opinion, has figured out a way to re-motivate people. Once you
No.
do all the
And
outsourcing, once you set up
re-incentivize
businesses
them.
overseas,
No.
how do you
No.
right? And then our education system, for whatever reason, refuses to also create that. It seems like a lot of things that we're doing is kind of tied to poverty and not really tied to striving, success, and having access. And they know, and I won't just say the left, I'm gonna say the left and the right. They do know that there's benefits from that.
Oh, of
Politically,
course
there's
it is.
been there's benefits from having a lot of people who don't want to do anything. And they can leverage
Yeah.
that because if I can give you things, then I can move you how I want to move. And I'm gonna tell you, human beings, like every other animal, I always say, don't feed the bears. The moment that happens, including states, including the federal government printing too much money and overextending itself, it is very difficult, from my understanding, to pull back on that. Once you've
You
done it,
can't.
you know, and
You can't.
economic depression would help us. Deglobalization is probably going to help us. I hate to say it, a real war can also help us to remotivate people to give them something to aspire to. Because for the most part, if you're in that certain poverty class, I haven't seen America yet prove to me that you can take a person who's been here for 5 generations or 10 generations and say the last 3 generations haven't been able to really pull themselves up at that point. Don't have the, and I hate to say pull themselves up, but just don't have the motivation or the appetite anymore, just because of the history of being here for so long and how it's been kind of passed down in their family. Because what happens, I think, a lot of times is if your grandfather, your great grandfather, or your father starts to struggle within this system, it bleeds off to you, and before you know it, you just become a person that's complaining about everything. Why don't I have this? Why didn't I get this? Why didn't I get access? What haven't everybody else's issue but your own issue? And it'll run through your family, run through your neighborhood, and run through your overall community. And you know what I'm saying? It can be challenging just because no one has really came up with a real serious plan. I think the school system will be the answer to some of that. But the school systems, I think, have even softened up to that. Well, they don't really want to work hard, so we're going to give them liberal arts
I mean, but
degrees.
they're
We're going to
trying
give them some.
to
We're going to get rid of all
graduate
the.
so many more people.
No, they're pushing people through American school systems, but they're
Yes,
not
they are.
training anyone to actually be operational. They're
No, they're not.
training people. I, it's almost like it's counter education because I know historically the school system was designed for a particular reason, but fast forward to where we are now, I'm not totally sure if it is operating correctly and they believe that it's working the right way. They're not really building things for people to be either entrepreneurs. They're not training you under pressure. If a kid gets too much pressure, he can go and cry to his mother, he can cry to his principal or whoever to say they're working me too hard, school's too hard, make it easier for me to pass the test. Just push me through school. Don't hold me back, even though I don't know how to read. Like they have coddled
They
most of
have.
our children, and I think it's linked right to adults really not having pressure on them to produce.
Yeah, like I came up with this idea, and Charles Merchant is right. That's what it's going to have to come down to is universal basic income, which is going to raise the South completely out of poverty
Oof.
once they do that. And you're not going to be able to buy real estate ever again in the South as soon as that happens. Well, actually, anywhere for that matter.
I don't know how some of this stuff's going to affect our economy.
I think it's going to explode the actual economy for a while, and then certain types of things are just going to go through the roof.
I'm gonna tell you
Uh,
when COVID happened, Democrats came out and celebrated that we was able to cut the poverty in half because of the checks they sent out.
I don't think that did that much. Come on, man. Look, that money couldn't last
Well,
that long.
well, I mean, it's ended, of course, but they made up.
Yeah.
They were trying to they were trying to capture a point in time and saying, see, if we give everybody money, they won't be poor anymore. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is that I don't know the effects of that long term and what is that how does that change our country? If the government cuts you checks and give you money every month, which people do need, don't get that twisted, they do need it, and
Yeah.
maybe that is the only option that we have. But can you attach something to that? Time limit. Okay, we would give you $1,000 a month, but you have to get a trade. You have to get a degree. You have to go back to school. You have to. I don't know because I've heard economists talk about on the far right talk about why do we have minimum wage? You should get rid of minimum wage to be able to compete in the marketplace.
Nah, man, it's crazy. Man,
You
they
know,
getting rid
think
of that
think
minimum. They get rid of that minimum wage talk is insane. I'm like, you could literally get rid of minimum wage in a way that makes sense. They'd be like, look, that the multiplier effect that you pay of minimum wage, like if you pay somebody $35 an hour, you get this big of a tax break. So that way people are not working in poverty and doing all that type of other shit, right?
right.
But just getting rid of the minimum wage and letting the market decide how much people get paid. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You want to spread this Mississippi shit across the United States? Like, come on, bro.
Yes.
That ain't gonna work. It ain't
Right.
gonna
A,
work that
a,
way.
a system like that is about. It really is about. I want to strip you of everything, of course, and I want you to work
Yeah.
for it. Now, because of that, you're gonna have a lot of poverty,
Yes.
but you're also gonna have a lot of success. I don't know how you swing it. Like you said, when they show some of the graphs and charts, and you see historically where we were, a working person was a lot closer to, a CEO, and they kind of use those numbers all the time, and how those numbers have sort of increased. And the executive pay is, up 400%, and then you see
Oh yeah, of
a pretty
course.
much a stagnant line when it comes to income.
Yeah, workers' wages and whatnot. Yeah.
Right. And I've heard a million debates, what I'm saying, about trying to raise those numbers artificially. And it seems
I
like we went. Go ahead. What you about to say?
I the dude like I'm like for instance, I'm from Mississippi. We've been trying to get them to
Uh-huh.
build like an ammunition plant or something that's military related in the area for a while. The governor don't even want to fucking do that shit. Why? It would bring jobs and it would take the control away from the actual state and put it in the hands of the federal government. That's why they never did anything else other than the few places that are there already because they don't even want that shit there. But they're so afraid of increasing the economics of the actual area that they'll rather sink the things in actual poverty and keep things in a format that that's never going to do anything. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that, like you said, that's where it gets trickier, because if you elect a governor, if a state wants to be a certain way, that's how they're going to be, though. Because if you there are some, and that's what makes it so bad from a Republican perspective. If you have a state like Mississippi, it is ran by a Republican, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And your state house is mostly all Republican.
Except for the guy in my area. Yeah.
And Mississippi has great access to water, calm, wonderful water.
What?
They can
What?
do all type of business.
What?
Right.
Dude, what?
But
What?
I'll go ahead. But I was
Yeah,
saying
we,
that,
we
and you have a lot of great land that you can grow crops on, et cetera, right, and build
yes.
businesses, et cetera. But it's their job. One of their jobs, obviously, is your chamber of commerce, and then your governor, is to get out and go overseas and cut
Yes.
deals. How many visas have they allowed in Mississippi? You think?
Dude,
Like, have
dude,
they
that's not a
requested the
place
federal
for that.
government to bring it to bring? I understand. I'm just saying, as an example, I think I want to say Michigan some years back asked the government for 400,000. I think, like,
Mm.
work visas to get in, to bring in a bunch of Chinese workers to do work to drive the economy.
No, like Mississippi doesn't want to do any of that because Mississippi want to take all the money from the federal government and not improve the state, so that way the state stays in the hands of who the state stays in the hands of.
That's what I'm saying. No one is going to the Republican Party saying, if you're about free market economy, um, um, uh, free choice, free will, right? Unadulterated capitalism, that you would be making big deals with
No,
Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, China, Taiwan, Japan, etc.
oh no, like
I think they're
Mississippi is
putting. I
not
think
one
they're
of those
putting
places
in.
that have those type of first world conversations, dude. Like that's not
Yeah,
no no no. Mississippi cares about keeping that place poor AF. That's what they want to be number one in everything. Bad and number 50th and everything good. Like that's what the state is on. They've always been on that
yeah.
shit for as long as I've grown up there, and the generations of people who stayed there. They moved to another area where there's like services and things that work, and they shocked and surprised how the rest of the world works versus that actual place.
Yeah, I think Intel was doing some research on Midwest economics. And I know that Midwest economics is about to be amazing shortly here in the future. They got a lot of things going on. But anyway, I think Intel just going to cut $20 billion check to put two Intel chip factories in Ohio. They announced that, I
Yeah.
think, recently. So things
Yes.
like that, you would say that, now, how am I not? What is Ohio doing that Mississippi can't do? But you're just saying it's just
Well.
bogged down in politics, basically.
Well. Well. Ohio is pretty right wing too. But at the
I
end of the
know.
day, there's still a lot of people who want to do business shit here. It's like Ohio does the brain drain from the Indianas, the rural Pennsylvanias, the Kentucky. That's where West Virginia. They brain drain all of those areas to the
Mm-hmm.
kind of Columbus metro area, and
Mm-hmm.
like the big four: the Columbus, the Toledo, the Cincinnati's, and the Youngstown.
Cleveland. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
Youngstown.
yeah,
Yeah.
Cleveland. Yeah, yeah. So that's what that is in that area. Mississippi
Even
can easily
even
do
even
that.
Even Tennessee for years have attracted factories and industries even into their state.
Yes, they. I'm telling you, man. Like up and down the I-65 corridor from like
Hmm.
Kentucky. No, out because there ain't no factories like that in Indiana. The moment you go across that bridge to like Kentucky, Louisville, obviously right there,
Hmm.
but what New Albany, Indiana, I guess that's still considered Louisville, Kentucky suburb. But from there all the way down to Tennessee to Highway 24, all the way across, from Nashville to Memphis. That whole area has nothing but factories, and I'm talking about paying like 30 some dollars an hour,
Hmm.
but no mass transportation to get to those actual jobs in the actual middle of
All
nowhere.
things that would drive economics.
Yes, it would.
I know.
But those people who live in small towns, a lot of them have those parking rides out in the middle of nowhere, but not
Hmm.
nowhere near toward the point that they need to actually source and fund those places appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah, you have, like I said, you have to figure out ways to attract business, and you really have to make it pretty much tax free or very tax friendly, and give them full control as much as you possibly can,
And
and
that's the
allow that
thing.
entrepreneurial spirit really to take hold.
Yes. And Mike is right about this. Mike B is right about this. Ohio has a strong university system that produces talent to work those jobs.
Yeah.
We have somebody who work at one of those universities, but somehow is against public education within the actual sector. Make shit make sense. But
Now the Midwest, and I'm talking about from Ohio, upper Midwest, I guess, Ohio through Michigan and up to Minnesota, and I'm sorry, up to the Dakotas.
yeah.
Those spaces are telling people around the world and in America, it's I know it's expensive, so once you come here, and we're going to set up some things. Now Mississippi easily could offer cheap housing,
Oh, easily.
industry, no taxes, and make and to me produce the same thing. Even build out. I mean, they could even make a declaration that we're going to build the greatest seaport that's ever happened, that's ever existed in America if they wanted to.
Oh no, Mississippi's not going to do anything like that.
Why
So
not?
here's what people, because the reason I just named, they're not interested in that.
No,
They're
I mean
interested in
outside of that. What
control.
I mean, what's the population of Mississippi? Let me look that up. Where's my
I think
computer at?
it's slightly under a million.
Wow,
Because
that's
not
all,
that many.
huh? Wow.
Yeah, but spread it out. I mean, but they kind of like most of the state. Like if you drove I-65 from like below Nashville all the way to Alabama, that's how
Hmm.
Mississippi looks. It's like that everywhere.
Hmm.
It's just, I mean, most of it it's zoning. It's zoned for farming, and then people don't farm the areas. They don't turn the zone areas into actual real estate sectors because they're not trying to have somebody move in and actually take control of the area. They're trying to keep the control in their hands and really nobody else's. That's how come they haven't extended a highway from north to south in Mississippi. That goes all the way to the bottom of Mississippi because they're not trying to empower those people in those areas. Believe it or not.
And with a low population, you could probably fill it up with maybe 2 million
That's what I'm saying.
immigrants
That's what I'm
easily,
saying.
and other Americans to come in there and really create some economic development. There's nothing really
I
stopping it with a Republican Congress and a Republican governor, though, really, outside of their mindset, like you said, their mindset or their supporters' mindset. I don't know who controls them exactly. Did you have any insight on just who's sort of running the politics outside of the actual politicians? It got to be somebody
no.
purposely
I mean,
suppressing that area.
no. The government is purposely suppressing the area.
The federal government.
No, the local government is actually suppressing the area.
So
Remember,
they don't work for people. They don't work for anybody.
there's really not no big companies out there like that. And even if there are,
Hmm.
there's people who's moving from outside of the state into
Gotcha.
the state to actually live there. So there's not a concerted effort from Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and definitely not none of the HCBUs to create these type of individuals that would attract a large ass company working down there. There's not a concerted effort for that. It's
Hmm.
actually the opposite. It's a concerted effort to make sure by having low numbers on everything that nobody wants to come to Mississippi under any circumstance. But
Mhm.
that means that there's a lot of real estate that's not being used. There is no reason for why there shouldn't be high rises for the people doing call center work or IT work or whatever in that state. There's absolutely no reason for it.
Did Mississippi have they did at one what they were a part of were they a part of the economic boom in the 1940s and 50s and stuff?
Mississippi,
As far as the
no,
crawl
most
and
of those
sprawl of the
people,
suburbs, the
no,
all that
no, no,
stuff.
no. Most of those people left. Most of those
Yeah, they
people left
left.
to the St. Louis's, the
Yeah, went north.
St.
Yeah,
Louis's, Chicago's, Milwaukee's, and moved out west
yeah.
and moved to like the East Coast.
Now, when factories decided to when people wanted when factories decided to move south, they pretty much left out Mississippi, which is interesting.
I mean, you still got like the Toyota here and there, but nowhere
Yeah.
towards like okay, let's look at like Georgetown, Kentucky for example. Huge ass Toyota plant. They make brakes and shit for all sorts of vehicles, not just
Mm-hmm.
Toyotas, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
why do a lot of business out of? You won't find some shit like that in Mississippi. Why? You got to give the tax breaks. You got to have an educated
Right.
workforce, and
And you don't know
there's a
what
lot.
Mississippi's holding on to. You don't know what they're necessarily holding on to kill economics, even though they're supposed to be
No,
Republicans.
no, no, no. What they want to do is keep the area suppressed so that way they can run the area. If the area
I got you.
expands economically, then they won't be able to run the area. The
Yeah,
priority is
Baltimore's the same
keeping
way.
correct. The priority is keeping the states in the hands of the people who actually historically and have familiarly held control of power down
Yeah, I asked the
there. They
same
can
thing
easily get help from
about
the actual federal government. They can easily get billions of dollars from the federal government a year. You probably wouldn't need but like $5 or $6 billion 3 or 4 years in a row, 3 or 4 years in a row with people from the outside to really modernize fucking the whole state of Mississippi. It doesn't take that much.
no. I mean, Arizona's been doing it.
Yeah.
Nevada is starting to do it.
Yes.
And being that close to Texas, it's shocking to me, by the way, that they're not negotiating with Texas on anything.
Yeah, they
That
have a
that part
mandate
that
to
part is
keep the
shocking.
place. I mean, but the whole mandate is to keep the place economically depressed. Now,
Yeah.
is it a great place for actually going down there and having cheap real estate and just switching people out? Like this, this is why I'm going back down there and open up training facilities so that way you can get money from
But
the
you're
federal
training them to
government.
leave, though. They're going to leave, though,
Yes,
right?
yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Because Mississippi isn't going to fund that training, but the federal government will fund that training to get people the fuck out of there, so that way they can pay taxes and pay all their money back that they pay me to train these people. So what you do is you brain drain those places where businesses are not going anywhere anyway, and just move into other areas,
Yeah.
even if it's
In
just
other
Memphis
states
or
like
Atlanta.
Michigan, even other states like Michigan or Detroit specifically, even though you lost 2 million people and it's economically depressed, they still have an energy that draws people right back to Detroit, buying up all the property, starting to rebuild, starting to do new deals, because that spirit and energy, I guess, is already sort of in the environment. They just went through the whole outsourcing situation and automation. But maybe from
Yeah,
Mississippi's perspective, you haven't yet bitten into that economic apple yet, really.
dude, they don't give a
Because
shit
to
about
have the
biting into
Mississippi
that.
River, I'm just saying having the Mississippi River is crazy. Because
If they
Mississippi
ain't
should be
doing
one of the
anything
richest,
with it,
which should be one
if
of the
they ain't
richest
doing anything with
states
it,
in the country, really.
I mean, the ports was probably ran better in like the 1700s than they were now.
Yeah.
Literally, probably,
Well, I
probably
mean, back then
ran a
during
hell of a lot
plantation
better.
times, they was billionaires basically.
Yes. Yep. But Shonda H is right. Like, it sounds simple, but when you have an actual
It is
disconnected
if you're willing to give
populations
up
of
that power.
people,
If you're willing to give up the power, because really, you don't even have to worry about the current population there. If you run that state, you don't got to worry about them. You can wash them out. You can set up an economic system. We've seen it done in other states to where you can start to bring in people to build everything because the land is there, it's cheap, it's underdeveloped.
yes,
And I
and
mean,
very
I'm not even
fertile, by
talking,
the
I'm
way.
not even talking about Americans. I'm just talking about people from outside of the country that can come in there and do stuff if
Yeah,
you open it
yeah,
up.
but like I said, the focus is on keeping the place economically depressed so that way they can maintain control, and they don't
Yeah.
care about what they have to miss out on in order to maintain
Uh,
that type of
they
situation
don't
there.
want a big corporation to come in there and start moving their weight around. They like the
Correct.
power that they have. They like. I get it.
They like it the way that it is, just
Yeah.
like people in Mansfield like
Well,
the
that's why I
way
always
that
tell
it is.
people. When you look at Nashville, Nashville is popping, booming, jumping, doing everything that they can do to make that money. Memphis obviously is lagging, but they do have a few things there. But they have some obviously some economic issues as well. Uh, Conversely, Nashville is obviously the opposite of that. They're bringing in lots of businesses actually. But but that's what I'm saying even about so-called inner cities is that like in this area you have a tremendous amount of money and wealth, right? And they have purposely cut out Baltimore City
Why?
and will not. And I have asked and asked and asked and asked and asked and talked to a lot of people, and I still cannot wrap my mind around why you have this amazing Chesapeake Bay, Potomac River port system that's set up there. That's already the infrastructure is already there. You can actually make it bigger and modernize it, and you can set up rail system. We have a rail system though, but set up better rail systems and move some of that money out of like Northern Virginia and some of the counties around DC and shift it to the city. But for whatever reason, they just won't do it. You know, and they have some economic plans because Under Armour moved in, and Under Armour has built a big complex there, if I'm not mistaken. That I'm assuming they're finished with that, and they have also built some isolated areas in the city. But overall, that city should be just as powerful as some of our bigger cities. You know, it should not be
Yeah,
struggle. It shouldn't be struggling. But I know for a fact that Annapolis and the people who run our Congress is for whatever reason have made a decision to sort of keep everything very slow economics, very
so
slow
it's
movement. So they'll build something here, they'll build something there, but not a full revamp. And the money's here, billions upon billions of dollars, got a surplus, everything. No zero excuses, but they're making decisions purposely to keep certain areas from moving economically, regardless of the politics.
correct, and that's kind of what
Yeah,
the Mississippi
should be a
is
super
too.
city, really.
I mean, because dude, training is nothing. You give
No
people the
training.
materials, you get them the fuck out of there. It's like what I wanted to do is go back, or what I'm formulating to do is go back down there, reopen the black church, and just teach nothing but life skills and have people skill up. So like during the summer and all that kind of shit, where people are out
Hmm.
there camping and all that shit, these people are learning like skills to actually go run shit. So by the time they can
Yeah.
graduate, they can go to a school, or even not even need to go to a school. We get the money for actually training them, right?
Hmm.
And then we shoot them out to the Indianapolises, the Memphises, the Nashvilles, the Atlantas, the Little Rocks, the Birminghams, places where there is room for growth, but you can actually use it for certain type of people to go there. It's going on
Hmm.
exit. It's going on new. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like this stuff can be built just because the state don't want to do shit, which is obvious. That doesn't mean that the federal government will not fund it, which is what position that I'm trying to get myself into. So that way you can train those people up and send them off to a better place.
Hmm. No, that's great.
Yep. Say it again, truth as I
Yeah,
know it.
no, you got to
Yep.
get people.
They
You
brought
got to
over them
get.
white farmers from
Well, that's where.
Africa
Well,
and
that's
paid
where
them
it gets
not
tricky.
shit.
Right, but that's where it gets tricky with the individualism part because people will argue with me about collective versus individual, and the question will be if some of that's not really working or maybe it's too challenging to do within a certain time frame, do you target individual people and make sure that they're straight, make sure that they're getting educated, make sure they're getting informed, and kind of work with what you work with what you have versus sort of some of these grandiose ideas about the collective group.
Yeah. I mean, you, you have to go in and create that collective group. Unfortunately, you have to go in and create that. You have to go in and be like, look, we know you don't run your city to be shit, but we're just going to commandeer some of this land, and we're going to train these people up to actually be other things.
Hmm.
Now, nonprofits can do that, and I guarantee you the federal government is willing to fund the more liberal areas rather than to give the money to the states and do it that way. Because if you give the money to the states, it'll never see the people. But if you have a
Mhm.
nonprofit organization, it goes straight to the nonprofit organization, and the nonprofit organization can do all that shit. But the problem is, no nonprofit wants to set up or do business down there because you have to go down there with your own army. You have to literally go down there with your own people and terraform Mississippi. You
Mhm.
can't use anybody from the actual area because they're too fucked up in the head of trying to maintain the same circumstances for generations. It isn't just whites who are doing it. It's blacks
Right.
who are doing it. It's the government who's doing it. It's part of the lifeblood of the place is to make sure it don't go too fast. That's why
Yeah.
you have to go down there as a group of people. Like, look, we're just going to start pulling people in here, training them, training them to work remotely. And even if they do go outside of the state, they're still going to vote here locally. They're
Right.
still going to participate here locally. Because you can still get like grants for your city and all that stuff from the federal government too, which the small city that I'm from have actually been doing to actually modernize and do like infrastructure projects that the state won't pay for. They get it as actual, city contracts from the federal government funded through an act like a nonprofit.
So I wonder when the governor's running for office, do they make any economic promises in that state?
No, no, they just do the
Okay.
culture warrior shit, and that's
They
just
just
how
do
they get
culture
elected.
warrior.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's all it is.
As long as the blacks are struggling, we're good.
Yep. But the whites are struggling just like the blacks, but they feel better because the perception is black people are suffering more.
Yeah. They'll live within the fantasy.
Yes, all the way.
That is typical America, boy.
Yeah.
It's a great way to distract people who isn't contributing, who aren't doing anything. It's a great way to distract
That's
them in
why.
this country.
That's why I just wait for the people to start complaining about stupid shit. I'm like, oh, okay. You complain about stupid shit. Where do you live? Okay, I'm never
Mhm.
visiting that place. All right. Let me guess. You can't be this high functioning of an individual and believe this type of stupid shit. You just can't. I'm sorry. You
Mhm.
just can't believe all this stupid fanciful shit and then fall for these type of things and then turn around and do something that's very high functioning. It's just not
Well,
even possible that a person
especially
can do all that.
especially if you're not setting those skills up when they're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old.
Correct.
That's really where it starts. Most of us are going to age out, so we won't even be here.
Yeah, like
So
if you don't reach them by the fourth grade, man, you fucking lost them forever. Like
yeah,
that's what most of
people
the
should
people
worry
say
less
down there.
about older people or adults and focus and really attack and figure out the fallout with the children. Because if you start training kids at a much younger age, they may stray away and not want to do too much, but they have a hard skill or a hard set of multiple skills that when they decide to engage the economy, they can actually engage the economy.
I mean, shit,
But
engage the economy, work remotely, own real estate, be able to travel and do shit, get the
but I think you
ideas, bring all
have
the
to
ideas back
instill
there.
that. I put it this way: if we not we're not complaining obviously, but if we complain about certain things, right? And then if me and you go walk into an elementary school and have a conversation, right? And they sound like old folks talking, like, I don't want to do that. I want to, be a YouTuber or whatever, right? You hear all that talk, and then it's like, well, we're
Yeah,
gonna have this conversation in about 20 years, guys. So 20 more years from now, get ready, you know, to have that same conversation we're having right, in 2023. We're gonna have it in 2040, talking about, well, why aren't people trained? Why they're not skilled? But I'm like, well, we got the kids now. We can
yeah.
start talking to the kids now because a lot of our children live in a very rich country and we have a lot of high flying ideas that impact poor children, but we're living in a rich mindset. So we can be
Correct.
anything we want to be. You don't need trades, you don't need skill sets, you don't need to learn how to manage well, we don't have checkbooks no more, but manage your account online, or when you're getting a credit card, or should you get a credit card, or what's the most valuable thing you should be concerned about. Um, those things I don't think we're instilling them. I mean, I go to the schools in my area now and talking to kids, and I'd be like, what are you talking about?
I mean, like
And the system is
kind
telling
of,
those kids that do not listen to Paradox. Don't listen to him, right?
yeah. But you have a
Because
simultaneous of two things going on there. I mean, the simultaneous two things is you got the parents who want to leave it up to the actual school system to babysit their kids for 8 to 10 hours a day,
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the clearinghouse of teachers, the clearinghouse of teachers that are just nothing but just unproductive individuals who hide in education for the most part. You got that problem going on. And then you got the government just letting this shit happen because they fund the prison systems and the
Or
United
they
States
benefit from
military
it.
and all. Yeah, of course, yeah. So you have a
If I
whole
don't train you, I can
beneficiary
keep
class.
outsourcing.
Correct.
If I don't train you, you don't have skills, so I can use that as an excuse to keep putting jobs overseas. It works perfectly
Yeah.
for them, in my opinion. But I would love for, I don't care if kids see their parents at all. Put them in school
Me
7 days a
neither.
week and let them live there.
Yes.
As long as they're being taught. I don't, and I like I said, I have, I guess my philosophies don't necessarily matter because it's not really happening in the real world. I don't even think boys and girls should be going to the same school. I think kids should
Not.
be in school 10 hours a day, like you just said, but not learning irrelevant information though. I
That's
mean,
what I'm
high
saying. Like,
science, very aggressive science, very aggressive mathematics, and no hippy dippy arts and whatever else that they want to teach. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. I want to be very aggressive on technology.
but
And every
but
time
here's the
it's trying to
thing.
be implemented, even when Bill Gates was trying to do it back in the 90s, they just don't want to hear it. They do not want to put that pressure on those kids and have those kids in school through the summers. There is no fun here, right? Kids should. I still hear people today, even to this day. I heard somebody just tell me that because a friend of mine is very hard on their children, right? No games, no plans, study, study, study. And the relative was like, they let them be kids and let them have fun. And I was like, when did that mindset exist? Because it wasn't always a thing. Because
No,
historically you had kids working in factories when they were 12, so it wasn't a thing in the past. But somewhere it just popped up, and kids need to be kids. I'm like, is that coming from the ultra wealthy people and has trickled down to common folks? They should explore. Do you remember that back in the day? You just go to
yeah.
college to explore and just learn. You just explore and just enjoy.
No, that shit's crazy. Like, but then
That was
again,
a real stream of
th-
consciousness for sure.
this is something that could be socialized into people. Like I
They
said,
socialize it in people. That's why I don't. That's why
yeah,
I'm less aggressive on individual people's behaviors because I understand systematically that, and I lived it, is that the way they were talking about work, in my opinion, overall, just kind of an overall kind of thought, was more of laissez-faire. And every time people would come out back in the day and would say, "We need kids working harder. We're competing with the world." It went, that conversation went nowhere. It was all about, we have money, we're a rich country, we're very successful. Let the kids just be kids. Matter of fact, let them be kids until they're 26. That's where we are now, right?
let them be kids, let them live with you like it's
So they're
high school, and then
26.
and then then you got all these other problems that are being created. But then again, you got the parents who see this shit coming and don't even try to educate their kids out of that shit, and that's something that I don't
Very
get. It's
difficult. Very
uh,
difficult. It's very, because I'm
it,
gonna tell you why. Though the things that they're doing, they know that the things that they're offering. I'm gonna tell you, if you work somebody hard and give them an option not to, generally speaking, they're gonna probably lean towards not to doing it.
I
If you
know.
keep that pressure on people, you're going to produce a diamond every time. But you have to keep the pressure on. America got off of that. I think obviously a part of it is going to be globalization. Probably plays a major role in this conversation. But I think the success of our country created a lot of this, and that's why it's hard for me to really hard for me to point fingers, because systematically it's created those kind of environments, and a lot of people get left out because you know that certain kids shouldn't have an option. So if you want to apply that logic to kids whose family's income are seven figures, then enjoy yourself, because they're going to have multiple fallbacks and be able to fail multiple times and still get the check from daddy. But everybody who falls under that, it should never have been easy for us. It should always have been hard. It should always been challenged. It should always be aggressive when you're in these school systems. But what did they do? They removed outside of just kids being able to just exercise. They removed all of your trade programs, except, we say this all the time, but they removed all of the programs to give you other options. And even when it came to universities, what did they do? They pushed a lot of kids away from math and science, even in university. And what are they supposed to do when they get out of school?
Yeah,
What are
yeah,
they
but
supposed to
they
do?
had to. Okay, so here's the thing. And I still think this is a choice thing on the actual parents. By the way, I don't think
Okay.
it's the actual government's job
You talking
to
about rich,
actually.
successful parents? Which parents are we talking about?
I'm talking about parents in general, because remember, you get to
Okay.
choose how your kid actually, what they
Because
do
rich
outside of those
parents,
8 hours.
but rich parents can do whatever they want. So you talking about poor people, middle class people? Who are we talking about?
No,
Because
we're
when you're
talking
rich, you
about
can do
all
whatever you
people
want.
who. No, I'm just talking about the choice narrative of letting your
Okay.
kid follow that shit or not. That's what I mean
Okay.
by the parenting aspect. It isn't
Okay.
necessarily a bad school system. It's bad parenting, and no one really cares. So these people are going to end up in the military or prison because we got to keep that shit working too. So it's just like what I'm saying is all this stuff can be taught to people up front. They can actually go out there and make a different decision for their actual trajectory of their actual kid. They just don't fucking
Yes.
do so. They just don't do
Yeah.
so. That's why I say, look, man, let the motherfuckers consistently lose. Bring a whole group of people who know how shit works down there, and just run in circles around these motherfuckers.
I mean, we're
You
already,
know?
but we've never stopped doing that because freedom, failure is freedom. So you have the freedom to fail. My only concern is that forcing children to go to environments where they don't learn anything and then letting them fail. That's where I have a bit of a disconnect. And what I mean by that is very high end schools, not high school, middle school, elementary school, very high end schools. Those kids are trained and professional. Once you come out of that space and say you go to maybe an average private school, you're going to get a little bit more of that. Once you drop out of that and get into public schools, depending on your location economically, you're going to get a little bit less of that. And then once you drop down to lower class, middle class, and object poverty, you're not going to get anything. There are little housing projects for kids basically for 10 years, whatever it is. You cannot set up
Yeah.
children, regardless of your parents, you cannot set up children in those spaces and have expectations. I think it's an impossibility.
I mean, it has to be individual, but if you don't really care about the actual outcome and just let these
I'm
people
gonna
just do whatever the
I'm gonna
fuck they
say it
want to,
again. I know private schools where almost 100% of the kids graduate college.
yeah, I know, I
There is
know.
a reason.
That's
There is a reason why, and it ain't race, and it ain't anything. It's a reason why, and it's how that system is set up.
no,
The argument would
it's a
be is
class-based system. It's a class-based system.
can you create that same aggressive system for poor people to produce the same outcome?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
But
I've
right
seen
now,
it.
they're housing projects for kids. These school systems are housing projects at this point.
Correct.
But then
But
your
I've seen it like,
expectation is very high. Doesn't those two things cannot connect, because as a system, if I'm producing people to be impoverished, then that's what I'm doing. So it doesn't really matter about the failure part. I'm producing the failure.
correct.
I have the parents, I got them hamstrung. They can't do nothing. I'm not going to let you leave. I'm not going to let you put your kids in a different school. I'm not going to give you the money to make the choice. I'm going to hamstring you, and I'm going to make you 50, 60 hours a week, the ones that work. And the ones that don't work, who the system structured a way to get them on welfare, they're not reading. They're not doing anything. They're getting high and drinking and partying.
Yeah, what's going on? What's going on, Rob Spice? Yeah, you're correct. But this is why I say an additional level of education and trajectory correction is needed on top of what's there. Because what's there now is sending them people down a race to the bottom that is never going to move or change.
No,
And
our
I keep
system can
saying that the
absorb it though.
government,
So far,
they can, but it's just that these people just got to be educated out of the trajectory that they're currently on. Most of these people think this is exactly what the fuck that they're supposed to be doing because this
I
is
don't
what
know if it's
everybody else is
politically.
doing.
I don't know if it's politically viable to, because you would have to do some forcing, right? If I starve you and funnel you through a system, I might can produce better behavior, but I have to starve you first, and I don't know if that's
Yeah,
politically viable
yeah.
to push you.
But the only system that can get people on point like that is probably communism. You're not gonna be able to get
No,
these people.
communism is
And
that's a fail. Those are failed systems. They don't work.
no, 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 no. I'm talking about like China. Like, no, no. We're gonna be printing, pressing, fucking engineers. We're gonna need this many. This is what we're gonna do by
I
force.
got you. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
but most of these people want shit to be done to them by force.
Unfortunately,
That's
it
it.
you
Yeah,
tend to get to that point at some point because the pressure. if America uses freedom when it wants to use it, and I think they use it to
Yes.
kill competition.
Yes, they do.
If you put kids in a position to have to choose and not be totally free of choosing anything, then you would obviously naturally get a better outcome. Because if I test you in ninth grade, I don't really care about your hopes and dreams of being a millionaire selling selling whatever you're selling, right? Whatever.
I mean, like lots of these kids want to be like influencers and shit. I'm
Well,
like,
I'm
man, what
just
kind
saying,
of fucking parents do you got, bro?
but you know how a millionaire would just luck up on something. And so it's like, well, I want to do that. I just want to just figure, just I don't want to just kind of fall into my lap. Like, oh, my friend, he's a 100 millionaire because he didn't even finish high school. Stuff like that. He became a salesman selling insurance or something, right?
Yeah,
Like stuff like people will lean onto those kind of things because somebody would tell the kids, especially from a liberal perspective, you can be whatever you want. So I'm going to let you sort of figure it out instead of saying,
yeah,
well, look, teacher, look, principal, I just took the test. Parents, I just took the test. I'm not going to be an astrophysicist. So let's start ticking off these things that I'm not going to be. Okay. And that's great, right? I'm good at this. And so based off my test scores, and then I'm gonna lean into that. I'm gonna lean more into that space if I want to do it or not. But it's not really set up like that, if that makes any sense. That's where I think a
yeah,
lot of the struggles are, is that you're sort of just left out on your own. And if you have really good parents, that doesn't apply, but you're sort of left out on your own. And then you go through high school and not really, do I want to go to school? Do I want to, you're not really getting the proper guidance. I mean, as a whole, the kids who are talented and gifted, those tag classes, those
yeah,
GAT and TAG classes, that's a different conversation, right? Now,
yeah,
you remove that top 10% and you say, well, what do I do with the rest of the people? Well, I'm going to let them just figure it out. That's not the answer.
yeah. But like, what's on the screen? Sean H is right about that Common Core and no kid left
Uh
behind shit. It
huh.
just kept
Yeah.
people in school when they clearly should have been just held back a grade, so that way you can get your fucking head together, so that way you can be able to perform like an actual adult. But when you got underperforming parents, teachers who are languishing within the education system, not providing any type of value, and you have an overall system who don't give a shit about the actual outcome. So now the outcome has to be pushed all the way down to the actual parent. Let's say if they have enough time because they work so much, or even if they have a man in the actual household to balance those actual duties. Like a lot of this stuff is it's really structural, and it's kind of kind of one on top of the other on top of the other.
Well, I'm gonna tell you. I will tell you. I'm gonna tell you how bad it is. Right. I know some really. I know an area that's pretty successful people who are very educated. Right. And even and this is really applies really kind of all over the country, to be honest with you. And it's interesting that these really smart people will send their kids to private school because their public schools are so bad. Now, what does that
Yeah.
say though about
Yes.
individual people and how difficult it is for someone? Both parents are doctors, right? They can send their kid to the public school system in the area. This is a rich area, but the school system is so bad they just pay the money to go to a private school.
Correct.
Very, very informed people. So now take a single mother or a single dad, right? Making 30 grand a year. They have a child. Where are they going? So you're telling me that the really smart people can't figure out why the schools are so bad, even though they're paying all them taxes on their house to fund the school. They can't even figure it out, and they're so frustrated because they go to the meetings. They know the governor. They know the county executive just was over having dinner, and then they're trying to figure out. Well, hold up. Well, I don't need to be. We have a $200,000 average income in this area. We have millionaires here. Why do we have to pay for private school and send our kid far away in some cases? And we're not smart enough to figure out the school system and why it's the way it is, and we can't elevate the school system.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
want
but
a
you gotta.
regular person to be like, "Oh yeah, I can figure this out." Nah, that don't that
No,
ain't gonna that don't those two things ain't gonna work.
this is what I'm saying. But it doesn't matter how many rakes they put out here. People go stepping on rakes anyway. Why? It's easier than fucking trying. Just to go step on a rake, pre-printed
Now I've seen
excuses.
people who are very, very educated who work in the school system and we're having conversations, and I can't even get a straight answer. I'm like, I don't understand why you have all the money in the world. But the public school system in these
I mean,
states
because it's not
are set
money.
up in this weird way to
Yeah, it's not
where
money.
you can't crack it, but you will blame poor people who can't go to private schools and tell them, well, hold up. Well, they got your kid there. It's $12,000 a month. I think in New York is like $40,000 a year or something like that for public
Woo! For
schools.
private
So you
school?
so for
What the
public
fuck?
schools per child, some crazy number that
Oh
they pay
wow.
per
No,
public school. In my area,
that's
it's like
crazy.
20,000, 15,000 per kid, whatever the numbers are, some crazy numbers, but it doesn't trickle down to the kids. But then we blame that adult who got that education who really wasn't educated. That's my only concern about when we talk about fallout is that understanding that, well, if I know very educated people who don't send their kids to these schools, who tried to send their kids to these schools, who know the people on the school board, who work on the school board, well, then how is this possible? This is impossible to exist. But it
Yeah,
exists though.
I do
And so
agree with you.
you're gonna have thousands of kids a year that can't get into college. And is not getting a trade to offset not being able to get into college. And then you get the outcomes that you get. That's all I'm saying is that when you see, like you said, when you see all the different moving parts, there is something going on within our school system. I just in the public school system, I just don't know why. And the solution has been just to go private. But nobody wants to privatize the school system though, because you know how Democrats are, right? Y'all don't want to definitely don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, you can privatize it if the money is going to be spent equally across the board. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But if you're going to spend more money on education, then you should just allocate the shit right and come up with a better system. It's kind of like the same with the VA. They don't want outside of Aurora, Colorado, we have a very excellent VA, probably the best in the country outside of like Walter Reed. But along with the same issue, like you go into these conservative areas, the VA is not very well thought out, planned, funded, or even executed. And you have the outcomes at those places that you have. Not able to actually attract talent, attract a whole bunch of people who don't give a shit about the actual system itself. A whole bunch of lifers that you have in there who failed at other things but can be able to actually be in that actual situation. Like
Yeah.
all that stuff is actually very true. But at the end of the day, you gotta have people who care about the shit. Like, okay, so I'm giving you an example. Like Springfield, Illinois, parental involved schools. It says what it fucking means. You're not parentally involved, you're not going to that fucking school. Those schools have very high test averages and all that kind of other shit. They can't implement it anywhere else because people work too fucking much. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like how do you balance the act between personal responsibility and nationalism and not really forcing people to follow a specific plan, but like we could do it when it comes to vaccinations, but we don't do it when it comes to educational outcomes.
I
I don't know
think
what
when
the answer is.
I think if the government system isn't working, you probably should go private and see what happens.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go private,
And we're going to
okay.
ask
So
the
right,
government. We're going to ask the government to cut the checks, but we're going to remove the power out of the state and out of the unions, and we're going to inject it directly into the parents and let them make the decisions, and allow capitalism to operate and start building private schools all over the place,
okay,
and
okay,
dealing with
okay.
and holding teachers accountable and principals accountable and managing it from that perspective. Not saying that's a one silver bullet solution. Obviously, that's not going to necessarily be just the answer, but I see a pattern. I live in an area that got some of the top schools in the public, some of the top public schools in America. Right? When you look at
Yes,
how
I
they, when
disagree with your premise, but I want you to keep going with it
you,
because if they're not going to spend the money right now, why the hell would they spend more money and put it in private people's hands? Right?
I, you know, economics is obviously I'm not an expert. I'm just a regular person, but
Yeah.
I don't. I wonder sometime that giving people that freedom to choose and allowing entrepreneurs to build schools and have that money there waiting and holding people accountable from a very aggressive perspective, ensuring that kids are learning how to read, learning how to write, learning their math, and also instituting things to make them understand how the world works and how to manage their life. You would have a better outcome than this antiquated school system that is training us to be backwards. I, at this point, would trust that in many areas. But if it's working in the areas, the test scores prove it, the outcomes prove it, and I'm not talking about. outcomes from a high school. I mean, literally literal outcomes, meaning that we're going to go back after 10 years of you leaving high school and looking at the benefits of those schools and where you are when you're 28 years old, right? Did you finish college? Did you get a trade? Did you go to the military? Whatever you chose to do, and sort of measure that based off of your actual outcome in your life. And looking back at the school system and saying, what do we need to adjust? What do we need to tweak? These schools in many areas, they're not doing that. It's still 1950, bro. I want
And
kids.
that's
I
why I
want
say the
kids building. I
money
want
is
kids
going
building
to
computer chips
solving.
in high school. I want them design. I want them designing computer chips. I want a president to come out and say, I want to produce 1 million entrepreneurs directly out of our high school system. They will get the money that they will
Okay.
get the money that they need, and we want to see what they can do. We want to create competitive edge within the school systems to find those kids, reward them, and put them on the fast track. Cross the board, 1 million people. That you're not hearing that conversation. I watched
Yeah,
the
I mean, but now you're
presidential.
talking about government spending
Look,
that you expect the
I
private
know it's
sector to
gonna
be able to
I
do.
know it's gonna be a contradiction. This is the problem. We do not live in ideology. We don't live in the academic institutions. I'm not going to sit here and play games and pretend that we have an unfeathered system of capitalism. Our capitalism is infused with the government. And so every single business that exists got money from the government. Every single company that's existing and breathing who are hyper successful are still getting not only money from the government, but are getting regulations to make it advantageous for them to control systems and be dominant across the world. There is no way I'm going to pretend that does not exist, right? So the same way you can give companies money, little incubators, right, to give them funds and let them build these mega companies. How can I just pretend that that's not there? That's already happening. Those things already exist, right? You because I know me and you both know that our federal government military goes into countries and sets up economies, right? Not
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs
Yes.
can't go in the
I mean,
country
this
yet.
is what these NGO does. Yeah, yeah. Pretty much the
Exactly,
NGO.
exactly. Exactly? So I can't. I'm not gonna. Because the problem with people on the right is that they're playing that game. That's nonsense. You're not gonna play with me. If I got, I mean, the kids are already going to public schools. So I mean, what are we talking about, right? It's already in play. If you're not putting kids in a proper mindset, you're going to get the outcomes you're going to get. I'm not going to blame no adults who come through the American school system. I don't care about bootstrapping, pull yourself up, figure it. Nope, don't work. It don't work for me because there is no way you're going to train folks to be backwards and then play games with me from a Republican perspective and try to act like we didn't set them up for failure and then hope one day that the few figure it out and then put them as poster children and say, well, he did it. He didn't even finish high school. He did it. He didn't even finish college. He did it. And he didn't even, he felt this all the way. He failed all the way through school. I'm not, who's playing that game? That's not serious talk. That's political nonsense, right? So if you don't incentivize our children in this country to be entrepreneurs, then it's not even American, in my opinion, to be honest with you.
That's why most of these kids have got to be given better options way earlier before they figure out that they're fucked later on and don't have the motivation to do anything.
If you do not, everybody who's on this call, if your children, your friends' children, everybody you know who is locked in on their kids, those kids are going to be successful 90% of the time. America has a system in place. If you do all the right things, you're going to be successful most of the time. But you got to
Yeah,
be
but you
locked
have to.
in. You cannot be distracted with the internet. You cannot be distracted with phones. You can't be distracted with all type of behaviors and whatever expiring to people who are just us all debauchery. It's all confusion. It's all laissez-faire. It's all hippie stuff. And that's what they've sort of changed our school systems to. And so when you get all of the negative outcomes, you have to tie it right back to that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, but I would not, for the record, I would not want Elon Musk like building fucking schools. I mean, like how many
Sure about
rockets
that?
blow up on the? Yeah, I am very sure that I don't want Elon Musk building schools.
I
Very
don't
sure
know,
that I don't want.
man.
I don't know,
I don't
dude.
know,
I
man.
mean,
I really think we should go get all of our billionaires and make
I
them set
mean,
up school
dude,
systems for
listen,
us. I definitely agree with that all
they
day, every day.
okay, maybe
Absolutely.
okay. maybe I would trust Warren Buffett because he probably gives a shit about outcomes, but not Elon Musk. Like I don't think most of these people only care about profit, and they're just gonna make up numbers. And if
That's a
they
good
don't,
thing.
they're just gonna get somebody else to just
That's
make up
fair.
numbers for
Corruption,
them.
corruption will be there. I get it. Corruption will be there, but that's the game that we're playing here. So I can't do anything with that because that's going to be the game. Corruption is going to be there. No different than waste and abuse in the federal government. You know,
Yeah,
they burn cash like it's nothing, bro. They have no accountability whatsoever, and it ties right back to public schools. So there's no accountability. You know, if we want our kids see, and I'm not even necessarily concerned about our kids being anything outside of being very informed and very educated. And whatever they choose to do at that point, it's all good with me. But if you ever talk to a kid, and I know people on this call have done it, and y'all might be one of those kids. If you ever talk to a kid that went to a very high school, right? If you ever talk to those kids, it's like talking to a 40-year-old man. If you ever talk to a kid that goes to schools that are struggling, very, very hard to find that conversation. You know, I've sat around and I went to an event recently back in June, early June, and I was around a bunch of 20-year-olds who are highly educated, right? Went to very sophisticated schools, very high-end schools, right? And I'm having conversation with these, and I've talked to them for years, of course, but just watching their maturity level, it's two different worlds, bro. It's two different planets. The things that they were into, the way their brains have been programmed and wired, the way their ideology is structured, it is completely different than talking to people that I know in other spaces. And it is, and I know I get that they have good parents and stuff like that. That's fair. I have to add that caveat in there. But the way they talk about school, the way they look at school, the things that their schools offer them, and how those schools plug them into universities, and how their mindsets are, they were really in a very tight structure to produce that behavior. I've been around people who did not have that structure, and they have a very different mindset. They look at the world very differently.
correct.
I don't,
I
you
mean,
know what I'm
but that
saying?
is socialized. That is socialized. That is
School
a
system is
choice
socializing
from
us to
those
be
people.
backwards, and then
Yeah,
punish
but
us
you
for
could be
being
up.
backwards and say, well, what's wrong with you? What do you mean, woman? You told me that this education was good stuff, but I can't sell it nowhere. Nobody wants to buy it. And then older people are going to punish me for being backwards and tell me, why can't I figure it out? Why aren't you motivated? What do you mean motivated? I have never been motivated. So why would I be motivated now? I have never
That's why
been
I keep
challenged.
saying
So why would I
that
be
this
challenged now?
is
I'm talking about 7 and 8 year olds, by the way. If you're not challenging 6 and 7 and 8 year olds to really think, to really comprehend, and to really understand, and leave them to their own devices and send them to these jungle school systems, you're gonna get what you get, man.
jungle
Chaos.
school systems. What the fuck is that?
Well, then you ain't been to
Could
some
you
of the schools I've
explain
been
that?
to.
Jungle school systems. Yeah, man. But it's just that, dude. It doesn't matter like where you're at, as long as you're educated on the outcomes, which I don't think these people are prepared for. That's what
But you're
needs.
looking at outcomes, right?
Yes, I mean I know the outcomes right now are bad. We know that.
What
However,
outcomes and percentages? Because I know some people who went to probably one of the worst schools on the East Coast, maybe one of the worst schools in the country, right? This particular person who never wants me to bring them up online, but this particular person and their family, even though they lived in a very aggressive environment, um, was still able as a family to produce great outcomes, right? But that's about 10% of that. The other 90% was chaos. But what their parents had to do, you just wouldn't, for whatever reason. Like I said, I don't totally even understand how these people was able to be successful, but they was in a very, very bad place. But most people fell to the environment. Their family just kept them tight and kept them together, and kept their fingers crossed. So I've seen greatness come out of very bad environments. It's just on a much, much smaller scale.
yeah,
Because like you said, because the challenges of the environment is going to affect how you behave. Now, the person still acts a certain way, but they was forced to read, they was forced to go to programs, and of course,
hmm
every one of their friends did not
by
have that
what?
experience.
By what?
It's by force, absolutely.
Okay, all right. So you're not a conservative, maybe an autocrat or something else. You're trying to force these people into this, and
When I'm talking about parents,
regimented.
though,
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
I mean, like, for me personally, I think people should have a license to have kids. They should go through all type of training. I think that the type of things that people go through to actually adopt a child in this country should be that type of training that should be incorporated into actual schools and shit, so that way they can have better, productive kids and outcomes based on that.
And the
So,
system also needs to provide things for people to do if you're not going to make them entrepreneurs. So you're producing a lot of kids who are not entrepreneurs, and then they're like, "Well, there's no jobs. The jobs are somewhere else. So what do you want me to do? You haven't shown me how to set up business plans. You haven't shown me how to get access to funding, and you're not giving me funding. But then you want me to do something. It doesn't make any sense. Does that make sense at all?
I
Is
mean,
that
I mean, the
you're
government.
not putting me in a place to be an entrepreneur, but you want me to get a job. I want to create jobs. I want to make jobs. I want to produce jobs. Teach me how to do those things.
Okay, the government is not going to produce entrepreneurs. All right,
Well,
it's the
there you
parents'
go.
job to create the environment so that way the kid can be able to explore their actual passions to the point to where it can be linked with business and turn into something great.
Are
The
most parents
government is
entrepreneurs?
not going to do that. No, they're not.
Hmm.
But most parents can't, or if not all parents can create that actual environment so that way their kid can become that. That's not the government's responsibility. I can't believe I'm saying this as a
I'm
liberal and
not.
you as a conservative trying to fucking force.
I'm not
Come
arguing
on.
with you. I just said privatize the school system. What are we talking about?
No, I mean, but you're trying to spend more money with the
No, I'm
actual
not.
school
I'm trying to
system
spend the
that
same
isn't being
money.
allocated by private people right now.
If I need a little bit of government money to get things started, and we build entrepreneurs, we make them come off the government titty. But you
Okay,
got
so
to
you
you got
don't
to you
use the
got to you got
government.
you got to start somewhere. It is my money. I am the government, right? By the people for the people, right? That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
Is it not?
but but that's not
If me and
practical.
you,
The way you're
or
doing it,
or
it's not
or you
practical.
cut, or give me all my money back. Let's give it zero out the taxes. It's not constitutional anyway.
What, taxes ain't constitutional?
It is not constitutional to be paying federal taxes. Absolutely not.
Okay,
When do
okay.
we
So
start paying federal taxes?
who
Give me that. What year was that?
who
It wasn't
who has went to court?
1776.
Who has went to who has went to court, made an actual opinion in front of a judge, and actually not went to jail over that?
Right. You got to pay them taxes.
It definitely wasn't Wesley Snipes.
Right. I know that's true. I know those are radical. Well, nowadays it's
Of
radical. I
course it
mean,
is. Of
some
course it
people
is. Yeah.
want flat taxes. Some people want flat taxes. Some people think that the tax burden stifles economies, and so it gets.
No, no, I don't agree with that. Like the only people who are paying the maximum amount of taxes in that bracket are entertainers and politicians and W-2 employees of organizations. Anybody else outside of that, they're not paying that type of money. I mean, they have 10 different ways that they can actually hide this actual money, pay a
Hmm.
lesser burden in
Hmm.
taxes. This is why when rich people
They
try to
believe it
play
spurs on the
poor,
economy. They believe that it
yeah,
spurs the economy.
I just laugh in his face and just telling them to stop sucking corporate dick. And that usually shocks the brain to the point to like, yeah, you're making an argument for a tax bracket that you're not in, or else you're an actual millionaire who's out trying to pretend like if only you had one more tax cut, you would hire 100. Man, get the fuck
Yeah,
out of
but
my
you
face
but you
with that
don't
shit.
but you don't get to create you don't get to create a convoluted tax code where I have to go out and spend money to be able to hide my money though. We have a very
Yes.
poor taxes where if I'm a millionaire, I'm sitting on $5 million, and I have to go out and spend money to be able to move my money around to be able to get tax breaks. It's insanity, bro. Our whole tax code should be blown up, in my
And
opinion.
turn into what?
And nobody should. Then what do you mean turn into what?
I mean, you want to replace our tax code,
Maybe
our
a
progressive
well, maybe
tax system with what?
maybe a flat tax.
No, they just turn
You
into a
know,
consumption-based tax like it is in
or
Florida and
maybe
every other place that
maybe
don't
no
have a
taxes and let everybody keep their own money. Could be that too, right?
man. Okay, so how we gonna
Tax
fund
tax
everything?
tax
Everybody keep
good
their own
tax
money.
good tax goods and services.
They do that.
You'll get your money. You'll
Oh
get
my
you'll get
god.
work with
Oh
what you
my
got. Starve it.
god.
Starve out the federal government. I want to starve them
Listen,
anyway.
listen, man, look. You know how much
That's
you pay
fantasy
in
though. I'm
fucking
just that's
tolls,
that's
how much you
fantasy.
pay to register your car. Like when you don't have a state
It's a
income
lot of
tax, it
taxes,
turns into
boy.
higher services for
Yeah,
everything else.
no.
It
But they
become a
doing that in
consumption based tax.
they doing that in they states are doing that too. No, they state taxes plus everything else.
You think that because Nevada doesn't have well, you know, they have a high entertainment system that actually pays most of the taxes for everybody there. But let's say that they don't have that. The services are going up in every other area that you should have had taxes anyway.
That's true.
Yes,
And
I mean, because
I'm no tax expert. I just heard debates about different strategies. So
yeah, but those different strategies come from people who want to turn it into a consumption based tax because
right,
they don't consume as much, even though they make a hell of a lot more money than
yeah,
other people. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, money is not speech. Money is property. Everybody don't have the same amount of property, and that's just where that's at. Like I
And
disagree.
trust me, I'm trying to understand it, and I've been trying for years. I don't, I'm trying to understand why people in this country do not want people to transfer wealth to children. Why money, when money gets held into a certain area, you need to come up with ways to
Man,
pull that money out those areas. And there's
okay,
some
well,
sophistication with how money moves. And if you don't do it a certain way, that they will have all the money at the top. So I have to do things with the death tax and things like that. And
I know the
uh,
death tax
um,
don't affect you. The death tax only
what do they
affect
call it?
500 families in this country. Come on,
Yes,
dude.
no,
The death
that's
tax doesn't affect
all right.
you.
I'm not
Doesn't
talking about
affect
me.
you.
I'm not talking about me. I'm just talking about just tax policies in general. And I'm talking
I
about
mean, but
why
that
people want to
specific
go.
tax policy
Hold
is for
up,
the top
but why?
500 families that own
Right,
multi-billion-dollar corporations in the
and
country.
don't
It
and who
literally
wants?
has nothing to do with
But
regular people.
but who wants to? But who want then why does the government want to go after that money then? What are you talking about?
Because the kids didn't create that money. The parents did.
But you're
Yes, and
telling
when
me, hold up for a second. You're telling
yeah,
me that it's not my problem, right? That's number one. You said it's not regular people's problem. I never said it was my problem. But I do live in America, so I am looking
okay.
at
So
all
why
the
do you care
issues.
about
So
rich ass
hold up.
people that much? Why do you
So
care? That far
who
down the line,
who's
dude.
who said I care? What are you talking about? I'm just talking about tax stuff. And
Okay,
people,
okay.
and I literally prefaced it by saying I've always tried to understand why when you want to transfer wealth as an example of why people talk about going after that type of money because something about the monetary system they want to be able to shift money certain ways and somehow as wealth builds up to the top they have to figure out ways to extract that money and just transferring. That's why you can't give money to your kids. You can't give me money without it being taxed. So when you're
Okay.
transferring money back and forth, there clearly is something about that. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm not getting into what you're talking about. Some other stuff that you have going. I'm not even getting into all of that. I was just speaking just kind of in general about
I know, but that's not a generalized
why people.
conversation.
You said
That's
it's
not a
not.
generalized conversation. No, it's a specific conversation that is very
Well, paying
detail
taxes.
oriented. Yes, I don't want wealth, that type of wealth being handed down every generation. I don't want that shit.
Oh, I didn't say I did or didn't. I was just talking about. It. I don't. Yeah, I don't know
Okay,
why
all
you
right,
was
all right. Okay,
getting
all
that.
right,
I
all
don't
right.
even
All right. Sorry,
understand any
sorry,
of that.
sorry,
I'm
sorry. Okay,
confused.
okay, okay. All right, all right, all right. No, I mean, like you. Okay, so here's what
Like it
happened.
triggered you. So I was like,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
I
no,
don't
no,
care
no,
either way.
no. You brought up something generalized to make a point. I know a lot about that
No, I
actual
was just
system.
no. What
So,
I said,
so,
I was
so
just trying to. I have always tried to understand why, when they talk about people moving money around, especially at the top, I don't have any money. What are you talking about? I mean, it doesn't matter either way. Obviously, I'm just saying, people who have that kind of wealth, why is it always a conversation that comes up in politics? I don't really understand the
yes,
point of worrying about, you
I can
know,
tell you why. I
and
can
they
tell you
make
why.
argument, and I've heard arguments about why you need to be able to deal with high wealth people and how they transfer wealth. That's all I'm trying to say.
All right, so along with that, the death tax idea that you actually
That's just the one
were
that
were
popped in my
talking.
head, by the way. I'm
No,
just
no, no.
trying to think of some of the other ones. It's
It's
not
only
even. It's like what do they call it? It's no, it's another one too, right? Where you, yeah, inheritance tax, all that stuff.
correct.
Yeah,
I mean,
all the same
but
thing,
it's
right?
over.
Death tax, all the
But
same
it's
thing.
over a certain amount. It's kind of like you don't get luxury tax unless you're building a certain level of gaudy bullshit in an area they don't want you actually doing. You get that actual tax too. So it's like most of these things, the actual big people pay for these small people to talk about these issues. I'm not saying you're making this point. I'm telling you how
I
politics
got
work.
you. Yeah, I
Yeah.
got you.
So the large 500 families, they could just throw around millions of dollars to try to get them to save hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in the future. That's
Right.
what that is. So they
I got you.
control the whole conversation around taxes because most people don't even know what they're talking about, even even around those issues.
Right.
But that's all that is. So I just wanted to give you like an additional explanation, so that way you just don't think I'm just talking about nothing. It's like no, it's very
No, no,
specific and particular. That's
right.
why it's only like 500 families, like
But the
Walmart
reason why,
people and all that kind
right.
of
But the
shit.
reason
Like
why I
yeah,
brought it up is that from a political perspective, especially from the left, they leverage that a lot about going after millionaires and billionaires, the top 1%, the top half a percent, because they feel like that 500 people that you're talking about, really 2,000 people who are billionaires in this country, they're trying to talk about figuring out a way to extract their wealth from them, be it a corporation or be it a private family. And that's
okay.
sort
Well,
of
let
a
me tell you why
major
that's the
talking
case.
point. Half the country has all the wealth, half of America, all the wealth is in the top 1%. And that's sort of a progressive talking point that is like one of the main ones they talk about. If not the number one thing that they talk about, actually, really, it's probably the
Because
number
here's
one
the thing:
outside of the
once you get
environment.
to a certain area, most of your money comes from the government. That's just the truth.
Right.
Once you get to a certain area of wealth, most of your wealth will come from the government. So if they're trying to take that money back away from you after you've already taken it away from the people, I think it's a conversation that does not even need to be had by anybody who makes or even have less than $100 million in wealth. It's just something that
Yeah.
we shouldn't even be discussing. But at the end of the
Okay.
day, once you get to a certain place, and we're talking about most of these people have like nonprofit organizations that they self deal and give their own money to, and then they get tax cuts and breaks off of that shit and this shit and that shit. That's why it's like, look, as
But
long as
wouldn't but wouldn't those 500 families or the thousands of billionaires and millionaires, 100 millionaires, wouldn't those be the people that you're looking for investments from? When you say you don't want to talk about them, wouldn't that be where your investments are coming from?
No, I mean because they're going to make the investment so that way they can make money. The reason why I don't want to talk about them is because people are not educated on the system to know that they're being fooled by those actual same people. The same people who tell you not to use the government, those people use the government like a motherfucker. It's like,
Well, everybody uses the government, of
you,
course.
you- yeah, but they use it a lot more. That's the whole point.
Corporate welfare is a real thing all day, every day. Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, corporate like
I just
the
talked
people
about
like,
that
oh,
10 minutes ago.
socialism. No, no, no. I'm just saying. People think we have a socialist system. No, we have a corporate socialist system.
Yeah,
Corporate socialist. We
they've
pick
taken
winners
over.
and
They
losers.
run everything for sure.
Correct. So that's why I say, look, I will not even pay attention to somebody's tax argument. I'm like,
But
man,
would
fuck that.
but but but
What are
but
you?
but would you want to figure out a way to break some of that stuff up, or no?
Yeah, but now you're talking about monopolies and shit, and that's
Right.
not something that the right wants to do. The right doesn't want to break up big companies. They don't want to do that shit.
But the left claims they do. Because
Yeah, but
wouldn't that make
they
it more?
can't.
Wouldn't that make everybody, every state, and everybody more economically viable if we can break up some of these big businesses and allow
Correct. I mean, it
smaller
happened with
companies
the
to
baby
exist?
bells. It happened with Standard Oil. It happened. It created a whole bunch of competition and more jobs
Right.
across the board. If you have one company doing everything, then it's going to be a actual contraction of the actual workforce, and your whole time is going to be like Verizon Wireless. Shout out to them
Yeah.
for not paying any taxes and still having like 15-minute fucking hold times and trying to make me use the goddamn chat system when I just want to figure out something on the goddamn phone,
Right.
and they don't pay any taxes.
Because we're trying to spur on, if we're trying to spur on economics, you have to deal with those 500 people, though. I would assume, right? You wouldn't
I
just
wouldn't
not
concentrate
talk
on it.
about that.
I mean, that's just 500 people. You have a
How
whole
much
country
how much
full of
wealth do they how much wealth do they have?
probably a vast amount. That's why I don't even concentrate on it.
Okay, so you wouldn't want one of them to move to your state.
I never said that.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying that exclusively putting it in the hands of people who use the fuck out of the government to actually run the government. It's a conflict of interest, and they're not going to choose to make less money. They're not going to choose to make more jobs if they can get away with less pay for those jobs and wages.
All right.
Trust me. If Walmart can move everything from like that small ass town in Arkansas to like Mississippi and employ the whole state and like remove jobs from other areas, they would have did that shit already.
Do you do
But
you
at the end,
think do you think a Walmart is? I'm gonna ask you a stupid question, so I apologize for I ask it.
all right,
Do you think Walmart as a company that comes into a small town, you think that's un-American and should be regulated and not even be
Walmart.
allowed to go to small town? I know it's already done now, so it's a past kind of a passing conversation. I don't want to waste a lot of your time with that, but I
No.
wonder sometimes the number of companies that actually is in Walmart. It's like, yeah, you can't come to small towns. I'm sorry. I know a lot of small town people have been protesting for that for years, obviously, and they have lost. But all of those little businesses that would exist outside of that place and how it consumes so much of the economies.
Well, well, one, they get a lot of tax benefits overall from moving into that area.
Yeah.
Like Walmart's not going to go into any place because of demand. Walmart goes into
No,
places because of
to
tax
consume.
incentives and breaks, and
Yeah.
they get the profit because I was in the middle of nowhere, a place in Arkansas. Like there's like right below, damn it, the fuck is that? Oklahoma, kind of Missouri, kind of cluster there. There's a bunch
Hmm.
of small towns, and there's a Walmart out in the middle of nowhere.
Hmm.
And there's an actual small grocery store that just went out there, and they're outperforming Walmart with prices.
Mm. Wow.
Why? They get the same tax breaks that Walmart got. So what these people are recognizing is that they're giving millions of dollars to go into an area to build a store, and then they work the people for fucking minimum wage. Like you can literally give everything in that area away for free and still make a profit. But at
Hmm.
the end of the day, they're Walmart, and it's not a whole bunch of companies. But at the end of the day, the actual grocery store right next to it got cheaper prices than Walmart.
Mm.
Yes. So what I'm saying, Walmart doesn't go places because of demand. They go to places because it's fucking food deserts. They get money because it's food desert. They use that government money, and then they don't pay their employees enough, so that way they end up on government assistance. So now they're getting paid two
Hmm.
and three ways by the actual government. So that's why I'm like,
Hmm.
look, man, I just don't even focus on companies that fucking big. Oh, trust me, they get more tax breaks and cuts than we can never know. It's kind of like me. I'm in transportation. I don't pay the same tax rates as a fucking Knight Swift or a JB Hunt or a CR England or a Knight Swift, Warner, Prime, blah, blah, blah. Bigger company, same industry, different tax breaks.
Hmm.
I would never concentrate on those people's taxes is because I don't know they don't pay any. And they don't
So,
pay their employees. They
so,
don't.
th- so that would be another example of where if you're dealing with kids, you would be
Yeah.
getting them prepared to be able to know how to access government funding, government
Correct.
contracts. Right. Right.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
that's something that people just generally don't know how to do, and then some people who try to do it get frustrated with some of those processes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even though it's an educational system within itself.
Yeah.
Those people who you walk in there, they do nothing. They have nothing but finding out where these actual things are and funneling that shit to the opportunities for their actual corporation. This is
Yeah.
literally all they do. They don't do anything else but that.
So how much government you think needs to put their hands on corporations? You think?
I think they need to put
Like
more hands on corporations.
how aggressive should they be?
Far more aggressive than they are now.
So do you think the Democratic Party puts any pressure on big companies?
Not anymore. Not since
Yeah.
Citizens United. Not since
Yeah.
Citizens United.
Yeah. That changed
Citizens United
everything.
really sold out the entire fucking country, so that way everybody's a blue dog Democrat now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally what happened. I mean, the moment that the Supreme Court says money is speech, no motherfucker, money is
Yeah.
property.
Corporations are
And
people.
corporations are people that can't die,
Mm.
they can't be prosecuted or anything else. If corporation can be prosecuted, Donald Trump would already be in jail for his tax evasion right now. But he's not going to go to jail
Lying about
because
that.
it's a. But
He
but
said
he
it too,
passed
by
it
the
with.
way. I know how it
Yes,
works, and I used it, and I have paid all of you off. Next.
yes.
Yeah.
And people like, fuck. That means he's going to do some FDR shit. Like, no, that doesn't
Hmm.
mean he's going to do some FDR shit. He means he's going to do what the fuck he's been doing, if not
Yeah.
probably more.
Yeah. Getting richer.
Yes, and it's like and people don't even know that Biden is more conservative than fucking Trump, but refuse to believe that because they hate
Well,
Biden so
Trump is a
fucking
is
much.
a flaming progressive.
No, he's not. His
Shit.
judicial
Okay. Then you
nominees
don't
and
know.
picks.
You don't remember his parties back in the day. Then
No, I mean that's what he
that dude
did
is
for actual
wild.
money. Yeah, of course.
It's a
We know
wild
the
boy.
cocktail circuit in New York, where him and like Joe Scarborough and his work wife Mika Brzezinski were all going to these cocktail parties together and fundraisers and shit. Now they want to pretend like they're enemies all of a sudden since he was president. So yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah, the optics of politics changes a lot of things for people for sure.
Yes.
Agree with you
But
on
at the end
that.
of the day, yeah, man. So
So
what do you
you were
think about?
saying, oh, go ahead. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
You got.
No, no, go ahead. Go.
No, I was gonna ask you real quick when you were saying not dealing with the top people. And that's not what we should be focused on. Are you saying focusing more on people who have a little bit less wealth who can invest in certain situations? I didn't
Correct.
know what you ultimately meant about that as
Correct.
far as
Correct.
because you got
Correct.
to deal with somebody that got resources and access to power. You can't pretend that that's
Because,
not it's not
but
real.
if you center the conversation and control around them when they already have that much control, thanks to the property that they have and Citizens
Yeah,
United the way it's set up, it
yeah,
literally makes no sense to structure the conversation around a Bill Gates or an actual Warren
Elon
Buffett.
or somebody, right?
Yeah, Elon. Yeah, I mean because as much as Elon said he don't want to pay taxes, the tax code is the fucking reason why he is getting all these government things for the actual government. It's like
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
the government drives this whole business.
yes,
It's not. It's not. It's not. I don't think it's. It's well. I mean, it is real. It's here, but I don't know how much of supply and demand that is. That's just
yes,
it's artificial.
yes. I mean, but it's
Truly
not.
artificial, more so than a lot of other things that get government subsidies, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but it's money that they don't see. That's how come they don't see it as money.
Yeah.
It's not going to quote unquote people that they don't want to go to. This is how people don't give a
But
fuck about tax breaks, but
they
they
pick
care
and choose
about three or
winners.
four $400. Yeah, but they give a fuck about money if it's going to like a single mother or some shit, but they don't see the billions of dollars going out the window over tax breaks and cuts. That's what I'm saying.
And the excuse is he's creating jobs. Remember George Bush? They create
Yes.
they're job
Yeah,
creators.
job
Don't
creators. Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
complain about them.
Yeah. Frank Lunt's
None of
talking
their
point.
government funded job creators.
No, no, of course not. They take all the government money and they create some jobs with it, while all of it goes in their pocket as actual profit.
Oh yeah, yeah for sure. Very corrupt.
Yes, but at the end of the day, if you create a bunch of people who don't know how shit works, you literally keep your power by having a system.
Yeah,
Create
because like you said,
people
it and
dumb
I have
on
to
that.
confess, it's complicated, I think. I think it is hard to understand because they can transform realities in your face real time and
Yes.
can really confuse you. Even if you're very smart, like I said, you be around a lot of smart people and you hear them conversations, and a lot of people are not informed, even the educated people.
No, I mean, you could be lost, fucking lost.
You
I
just
thought I
don't
knew a
have the
lot about the
information.
actual the defense until I got around people who was actually in defense, like the
Defense.
$1 billion kind. It was like
Yeah.
I got to get the fuck out of here. I don't know what the fuck these motherfuckers talk about. I can't contribute to this conversation, and I'm never going to be able to invest this type of money to be able to get this return on investment.
Hmm. Yeah. Stock market is another example of it. You have these
Oh yeah,
retail investors and don't really understand because the stock market is very complicated.
yeah. I
It
mean,
is
but
a
the
hu-
retail
it
investor,
is a hustle.
I mean, but the retail investor powers most of the losses that are made by corporations in this country. They can't do millions and billions of trades on
Nope.
fraction of a fucking cent and make a whole
Nope.
bunch of profit off that, which is where most of the money is actually made, by the way. And most of
Hmm.
these retail
And all
investors
your trades
just
are
get
delayed
lucky.
responses. You're not really getting that real time information either.
No,
Costs a
you're
lot of money
not.
to get access to that information,
Correct.
and you're not getting the phone calls. If you look at
Not that
somebody,
either.
if you look at how all the big trades are happening, people are making phone calls, letting people know what's going on.
Yes.
And our SEC is catching that 1% of people, or less than 1%. You know,
Yeah.
but everybody else is
Yeah.
getting
But
phone calls. They know how to trade. It's already locked in.
all right. So here's the thing. All right. So what do you think about these indictments for
Oof.
uh, Trump? Oh, okay. So let's go with. All right. So let's go in order. The four. All right.
Okay.
There are ones that
They're,
he's
they're all
obviously guilty
fraudulent,
of.
but okay, go ahead.
They're all fraudulent. Okay, okay, okay. So the ordering of hush money payments. Stormy
That's the New
Daniels
York
is
one, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not heavy into it because I think a lot of it's ridiculous political stuff. But right, he got indicted for the payments. I mean, I'm not gonna have a lot to say about it. I mean, I think that I mean, I hate to start using these political words, but it is a witch hunt, and so I'm not sure what the Democrats are trying to accomplish by blowing up our whole political system by doing some of this stuff. Uh, did the money come from campaigns? Did the money
Yes.
come from? I think they were trying to catch him on the money coming from
No, no, no.
campaign. He used
No, no,
campaign
no.
financing,
It was exactly
campaign
that.
funds.
It was a campaign
Yeah,
finance, federal
supposedly.
campaign finance violation, and his attorney, who did the actual payment, have already served jail time over it. Now
Yeah, I
he's
know.
unindicted co-conspirator number one in that specific indictment. So that means if his attorney went to jail, he's guilty of this shit already. So all right, so that's the first one.
Well, Trump might be guilty of something, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure if you can do it without a reasonable doubt. I think that it's very difficult to prove things.
you mean
That's why
difficult
that's
to
why that's
prove?
why that's why OJ went home.
No, I mean OJ went home because they tried
From
to.
a criminal perspective, it's very difficult when you don't have all your eyes and your eyes dotted and your T's crossed, and you leave some space for him to be able to wiggle out of it. He's going to wiggle out of it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. All right. So the next
Florida.
indictment. No, 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 no. New York.
Okay, New
Uh,
York.
the business and tax dealings and all that shit.
As far as him writing down some numbers, his $1 billion write-off, stuff like that, and not paying
Yes. Yes.
taxes and
Correct.
and
Correct. And lying
hiding
about the shit.
money
Lying.
and lying about. Ag- Look, I'm not that smart. I don't have that much information. I understand that the real estate business, just in general, is very, shady. And New York, I've heard claims to be one of the shadiest, real estate industry. So I don't know if what he's doing was any more illegal than anybody else who does real estate in New York. All of the mafia, everybody who's got their hands in the piggy bank, the governor, the mayors. I don't know exactly if he's doing anything any more illegal than anybody else. And he's running. He does his taxes. He showed his taxes. He gave everybody the information. Everybody went through all of his taxes. They really couldn't find anything. Did you hear something that I haven't heard?
Not yet, because the
He's a,
tax
he's
shit
allowed
hasn't
he's
went on
allowed
yet.
to but he's allowed through real estate to write down a lot of losses. So he's able to manage it based off the tax laws that you said that you love
But
so
he
much.
was, he was overinflating the actual
The
prices
value
of
of his
real estate,
properties.
the value of his properties, and then getting
I
loaned
mean,
them.
isn't everybody real estate's overvalued and ballooned
No,
up and
sir, that
artificial?
you
It's
can't
not
do
true.
that.
Your house
Yeah.
is really worth what you say. So you really think it's worth that? What is? Oh, okay, sure, maybe. I mean, how do we set values in these marketplaces? Who's setting these values anyway? It's a very loose environment. You don't think so? Real estate
I mean, but
when
if
it
you
comes
get
when it
caught,
comes
you're
to
going to
pricing homes
jail.
and stuff.
Yes, you get caught, you're going to jail.
How many
There's a
people went to
bank
jail after
fraud,
the, after the,
tax
how
fraud,
many
mail fraud.
people how many people went to jail in the 2008 crash? I'll wait for your answer.
Nobody.
How many real estate agents went? How many mortgage brokers went? How many small businesses? Anybody in Countrywide go to jail?
Hell no. Not
Anybody
countrywide
in Wells
home loans.
Fargo go? Anybody in
No.
Wells Fargo go to jail? What I mean, did the
No.
Fed show up at this door and try to arrest him? No.
Yeah. Some people
So
went to
so what are we
jail,
doing here?
but
That cost us probably, I think I've heard numbers around $20 trillion in value,
correct.
maybe more than that actually.
But that's a judicial system versus somebody who deliberately, singularly went after this shit and did it.
Right, but we did not build a task force. Our federal government did not build a task force to go after these crooks if they're crooks.
I mean, but if you're under a special investigation, you're under a special investigation.
Right, he's being targeted,
Yes,
probably illegally.
legally.
You think so? Okay.
Yes, I mean, like that's what the grand jury system is for. When you don't have enough evidence, you hand it over to somebody else
Mm.
to actually make you
You trust the
investigation.
grand
That's what the
jury? We're gonna talk about the
no,
grand jury stuff
no. I'm telling you what the
and how they
grand jury
select those
system is
people.
set up for. Yes,
Yeah, but the
they
grand
pay
jury system is
them and they
corrupt.
feed them for weeks, and then they hand them a case that they don't have and have them actually do shit. But listen, we didn't get rid of the grand jury system yet or ever.
I mean, it's here. It's not going nowhere. I'm just
Of course.
making political talk. I'm just saying. I mean,
Okay,
we
all
people
right,
pe- people but people have clearly talked about how corrupt those systems are and why the
correct.
conviction rates are so high and how they manipulate a lot of the information. It just talked about all the time. It's just that it happens to be this particular person. So all of a sudden, the grand jury is everybody's so pure right now. The FBI is pure. Department of Justice is pure. The Southern District of New York is pure all
What?
of a sudden.
What? No, 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 no. You don't want to be fucking
Right.
around with the
These are
Southern District
holy
of
places,
New
huh?
York. the DC circuit, and maybe like LA. Three places you don't want to be fucking around with no goddamn criminalistic shit
That's
for
true.
certain. Okay, all right. The third indictment, the actual records, which I think is the slam
Uh,
dunk, easiest to prove. You still having the records when they ask for you to give them back multiple times, and some of the records are even missing. That's a slam dunk case. Everybody who misplaced or used,
and that's
um,
in D.C., right?
no, 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 that's the Florida one. That's the
That
Florida
is
one.
Florida. What was they? Didn't they move it to D.C. for something? Thought they moved
No,
it to
no, he
D.C.
he he have different records in DC
D.C.
as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
mean, they're kind of connected because like some he took the records to Florida. That's why the crime happened in Florida, and some of them happened in Washington because that's where the records are actually being kept or should have been returned to.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a crime. I mean, a lot of presidents
It's
have records that they.
literally what they said he did. They literally gave him chances to give the records back. It's either
Well, the thing is, as the president, maybe he should have declassified them. Maybe he made a mistake. I mean, you got to give the president a little bit of leeway here.
how much.
He's not really a government official. He's not one of the traditional, one of the, what do you call those people who always work in the government for years? He's not one of those people. He's
A
just
bureaucrat.
yeah, bureaucrat. He's just a businessman. And so if he doesn't know that he shouldn't take documents, or he's holding on to documents, he don't know why you want them back. He don't trust the people in the government anyway. So it could have just been some miscommunication, in my opinion. I mean,
Okay.
Biden has records, Obama has records, Bush has records, Clinton has records. People have all type of stuff that they probably
But
shouldn't
when
have that
they're
didn't get
asked to give them
declassified.
back, but when they asked to give them back, they give them back. That's the point.
And I think the question is that part illegal if he chooses to delay giving them back? Because they did
If
come get the records, right? He didn't sell them to China. He didn't give them to
no, but
Russia.
some of them are. I mean, but some of them are straight up missing though. That's the point. Some of them are straight up
Yeah, I
missing
didn't. I didn't hear
because
about that. You should.
yes,
That's out there. I don't know about that.
yes, yes, that is the case. So
I'm gonna go on
and
YouTube and look that up. I'm not sure about that.
all right, so all right, so what about the indictment number four, the
The
Georgia
big one,
shit? Which
huh?
I yeah, the easiest one to understand.
Black woman taking down a white man. Ain't that crazy?
Yeah, I don't think
But anyway,
Trump checked into that before he did that actual phone call asking for 11,000 votes.
I think I don't know if they always played that entire conversation, but I think that maybe people are getting confused by the language and how he speaks. It's probably where they're misconstruing him, just not asking him to go and literally make up 11,000 votes. I don't really think that was the conversation they were having.
What?
I think he felt like they should
What?
have been.
What? He asked for something specific on the
I
phone
can I
call.
can give I can give you my Hillary Clinton answer since you're Hillary Clinton right now. Since you're Hillary Clinton, then I give you. Do you want the
Wait,
Hillary
hold
answer?
on, wait, hold on a
Do
second.
you want the
I'm
Mika
confused about
Brzezinski
this.
answer? Do you want the Rachel
Well,
Maddow answer? Let me know. Which one
I'm
you want?
I'm confused about all these women. I asked about Donald Trump and his actual phone call. I'm confused about all that you're talking about.
I mean, that's what you
Did,
want me to answer. That's who you want me to be, right? That's what you sound like to me. That's who you want me to be. You want to be Hillary Clinton? I don't know
I
because
mean, but you're trying to
if you listen,
deflect to these people when I ask you about Trump and this thing
no, no, I
specifically.
was saying. I mean, Donald. I mean, you heard have you heard the entire conversation and you understand how he talks and how he has conversation and you hear them going back and forth. He didn't ask him to produce or create out of thin air 11,000 votes. Donald Trump
What?
understood that he has a certain audience in
Okay.
in Georgia, right? He has a lot of people that come out and support him. They ran all the numbers. He had his statisticians come in and figure out that something's not right here in Georgia. So when he's making a phone call to the governor, was it the governor or was it the governor or the state elected official? One of the state. I can't remember
No,
now.
no Secretary of State that
There we go.
actually.
Right.
Yeah.
So he made that phone call and he's having a conversation about there has to be more votes out here. I should be
Yeah.
winning this election. He
Yes.
didn't say, hey, I want you to go and you manufacture me. He didn't use the word, quote, manufacture me some votes. Did he say that? I don't think he said that, right?
Could you find me a specific number of votes? That's literally what he said.
Well, he probably wanted a recount. He probably wanted them
He
to
got
make
that.
sure.
He got that.
Right. So that's what he. But I'm just saying is that he
That's a
asked for
legal
what he asked
process.
for. What he
No,
did
no, no.
wasn't illegal. Matter of fact, him going to multiple states and suing them and saying, "I want you guys to recount. I want you guys to check things," is for him to get validation that there was nothing funny going on. You're dealing with Russia. You're dealing with crooked Hillary Clinton. You're dealing with all of the crooked Democrats in Congress. You got all of the media people going after him, and you have the deep state, FBI, CIA. You have everybody going after this man. So what do you expect him to do? Why would he
I
trust the
expect for him
election?
not to
He
ask
needs to
for a
ask
certain number
questions.
of votes.
All right, so let's okay, that's fine. Let's do this then. Let's do this then. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
think?
it's not hard.
Hold up. Do you think that um, what's the vice president of Bill Clinton? What's his name?
Al Gore.
Do you think Al Gore should have been or is the president?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And do you think that he should have done what Trump did, which is putting pressure
Now
on the political system to behave?
he did do that.
Because the funny business with the governor, with
Wait,
Bush's
wait,
with
hold on,
Bush's
hold on,
brother.
hold on, hold on. We have to explain the Al Gore situation so nobody. Shit.
You have all educated people on this line. I'm sure they're all
Yeah,
historians.
well,
They
hold
they
on a
know
second.
what
Hold on a
they
second.
know what it
Hold on,
is.
hold on a second. Let me switch over to another device. Hold on a second.
All right, cool. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, go ahead though. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, Al Gore, right? You want to give people an education on that real quick. So I think you had said that we need to know who he was or the situation. You still there? I can't hear you if you're talking. I guess before you come back, I will. Well, I don't know what people need to know about Al Gore. I'm not reading the comments. I don't know.
All right, well, hold on a second.
But
Well, hold on. President Prince, thanks for the $5 super chat. If any
oh,
one of
okay.
us, especially Obama, were indicted for half the same crimes, we'd be locked up for life. Plain and simple. I do
Now we
agree.
now we bringing race into it. Okay, I got you.
That's not what it was. Okay, so for the actual Al Gore situation, the Supreme Court stopped the count. That decision was to stop counting the votes, especially after George Bush's brother was the governor of the actual state where the votes needed to be counted. They criminalized or made everyone automatic felons in a very specific, mostly African American district in Florida, which why they wanted to throw out a whole bunch of votes. So at the point where they quote unquote stopped the counting, before
Hmm.
they actually counted the votes in the actual county, I think it was Broward County. If
Yep,
I'm
that's it. Broward,
yeah.
that's it.
So, so what he did was he turned all those people into felons and made those actual votes null and void. So they didn't count the provisional ballots or any of that other shit, right?
Hmm.
So The Supreme Court picked the president. They stopped the
Sure
count,
did.
a democratically elected count of that area, and
Was it
that's
a
why.
Republican Supreme Court?
Yes, of course it was 5-4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
5-4.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. That did happen.
Right. And so my point is that knowing things like that happens these days, or maybe even historically, you don't think that Al Gore should have, you know, grabbed his nuts and become a man and fight for the vote and fight.
No, he didn't want to put the country through that. Like if the Supreme Court said
That's
to
exactly
stop the
that's
vote.
what he said too. By the way, that's exactly what he said.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so if the Supreme Court decided to stop the vote count, there should have been no more Supreme Court. That should have been it for the Supreme Court. That should have been the last day that every single person who voted for that should have been on the Supreme Court. Any other country that pulled that type of shit, that installed George W. Bush as the president, given that his brother was the governor of the actual state, they would have got rid of those people off the Supreme Court. But it would have messed up a lot of stuff here if that would have
happened. That's what I'm saying, though. You don't think. So you're saying that Trump should have just took the L, regardless of why it happened, and not asked any questions.
No, Trump did what he's supposed to do. He challenged it the right way. The thing was, he lost all of those challenges.
He did.
From judges that he installed, by the way, some of those judges.
Did. Yep.
And then he tried to have a coup attempt on January 6th.
Okay.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
That's not how I saw it, but I got you.
Okay. All right.
I don't know anything about coup attempts. I know that the government was involved in that, so I'm not totally clear about that.
Yeah, the government was involved in that. The Donald Trump White House was involved with that. That's what happened.
Nah, I don't know about that. Maybe the feds.
Okay, so what do you think happened on January 6th then?
I don't think we can move on from it, but
okay.
I mean, some people went to protest. He told them to be peaceful. Y'all, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They showed up. My folks was down there. They showed up. And then somehow some of these agents, it was in the crowd, quite a few. Maybe even they tried to break in. They did break into the Capitol building. And I know you can motivate people, excite people, and they kind of get outside of themselves and kind of follow along. But I don't think that his true supporters were trying to do that. I think there was a lot of agents involved in that so-called coup. That was very conveniently set up. Yeah, okay.
I know. Police officers as well from out of state.
We're gonna tell the governments to stay where they tell military people to stay where you are. Don't move. Just chill out for a while. I mean, yeah, very strange.
Yeah, it wasn't a military coup because the military wasn't allowed to be there because the order wasn't given. You call the army and it was like, yeah, the United States Army isn't available at this time. Leave a message at the beat. That's literally what happened. They didn't answer the phones to allow the chain of command to work right.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So you're okay with them threatening judges? These Trump people threatening judges? You think that's appropriate?
No, of course not. No, you gotta. It's a fine line, but it's a fine line showing your discourse as a citizen. So you got to be very careful with some of that stuff.
Did you watch the debates?
Which one?
Sorry, one debate. The one that just happened.
Yeah, I watched the debate and I watched Trump's interview on Tucker.
Okay. That dude was rambling, man. I'm not sure where he was going with some of that, but
you mean what Trump's talking on Tucker?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that really that was just conversation more than anything. I don't think he has anything to worry about because his numbers are so crazy high. And even after the debate, I went through maybe 9 different polls that they put out there, and I think everybody's about where they were. I think maybe Vivek went up one point probably. And I think old girl, her numbers went up a little bit too, a few points.
Haley,
Nikki Haley. So, but overall, it didn't appear that it moved much. And my expectations for Ron DeSantis was clear, evident, and present. But he did not. He didn't deliver. He doesn't deliver. But the party loves him. Fox News loves him. So they're going to probably still push him regardless. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I watched the debate. They didn't really, they didn't excite me with anything, any policies, or it was pretty standard, nothing revolutionary, nothing huge, nothing, no true big plans. A lot of just the standard pushing back and forth on different policy, on different politics. Uh, Vivek had some good points, his list of things that he wanted to be able to do, but it's very, I don't know, very idealistic of him
Yeah,
as
it's not
a
gonna
young
happen. I
politician.
mean, not in that part. I mean, he's more libertarian at best. I don't think. I mean, but he definitely ain't going anywhere because Trump gave him that actual promotion online. So his numbers are
Yeah.
going to go up, and he's
And
going to still stay around.
the Republican Party is going to put the machine behind Ron, no matter how good or bad he is, because they have just made a decision, I think, on going with him for whatever reason.
I mean, but
Uh,
surprisingly, you don't see any polls from evangelical Christians. You don't see any polls from independents, and they specifically left those two
Independence
groups
would
of
be a good
people.
poll to look at. I would
Yes,
like to look at that. I haven't looked at
but
that
they are
now.
specifically leaving those people out, and I don't like that because I think that actually tells the tale. Because evangelical Christians have been pretty quiet since they actually got abortion. The actual privacy in a
Yeah.
doctor's office overturned at the federal level. They kind of like resting on their laurels. You don't hear shit from Pat Robinson. You don't hear anything from Rick Santorum. You don't hear
Hmm.
anything from like the real conservative firebrands. Like since
People were
that
pretty happy with that.
evangelical. Yeah.
People, but it's a political hit because I was surprised when Nikki Haley, I think she brought it up and got a lot of cheers from her, at least from her crowd. Um, because apparently a lot of conservative women are not happy about it. And
No,
it
because
is so bad now that they have moved Republicans so far to the left that I remember there was a day when we had a lot of Republicans saying it was a no-go across the board. Don't care if it's incest, don't care if it's the life
yes,
of the mother,
made it look
doesn't
crazy.
matter. We're not doing it. We have moved so far to the left to where you can't even say that no more. That's pretty much a wash. Now we're doing weeks, 13 weeks, 11 weeks, first trimester, third trimester. So
Yeah, but the thing
very
is that women was always one party. Yeah, people kept not understanding that women are one party
well,
by themselves.
women want the same freedoms that everybody else has. So I understand the impetus to take those positions, but I don't I don't know if it's the right position to take um, because we need babies. So I don't have to like that statement I just made. I don't have to like it personally speaking, but
And look, we want
you
people to have
know,
more abortions than they could possibly have. Why? We don't need any more dumbass children here than we already have. I think it's a great idea that
I
people want
on
to
a yeah, but
do that.
on a
I want
system
them to have the freedom to do it. I want them to be a choice. I don't want people to be
on a
forced to have kids.
systematic level to maintain this nation, we need babies. I don't really
Yeah,
care
but you
about the
don't force
dummies. I
people
don't
to
really
have
care about any of
kids
that stuff.
who's not interested
Don't
in having them.
don't. I need labor. I don't need. We're already going through depopulation, but I don't need any more depopulation. I know, but we know immigration would substitute some of that stuff. Well, we do need babies on, however you want to take that on the local level.
Yeah, but no,
You need your country producing children. That's just what it is. There's nothing that can
I,
really.
I kept saying Republicans are not pro-life; they're forced birth advocates. That's all you're advocating for here. It's
Conservatives aren't
forced birth.
pro-life. They're forced what again?
Forced birth advocates. That's what it is.
Okay. Okay. I
No,
mean,
I mean, do you disagree?
I know you're a liberal. I get it. Um, I think a lot of things are connected, and so allowing all types of behaviors and all type of freedoms to happen in some ways can have some moral implications from a Christian conservative perspective that I probably have issues with on the left. And abortion is going to fall right into that. So
Yeah, yeah.
and
We got a question here from you from the crowd. Paradox. How do you
I
feel
hope I can
about
answer
Sean?
it.
How do you feel about Sean Hannity taking millions each year off low-income housing from the government?
Yeah. I mean, that question answers itself, obviously, but
Yeah, I mean, it's true.
I'm not a fan of corporate media in general. So I don't see Shine no different than I see, whoever. But you know, a lot of things he did, a lot of things about him is fraudulent to me anyway. So, and a lot of things that he pushed, I don't agree with. And so, if he's doing what you say he was doing what? He was taking money from the government and what? Starving out
Yes,
low
yes,
income.
yes. I mean, but this is well known that he's always have done that. But it kind of accelerated under the fact when Ben Carson, who's not qualified to run HUD, by the way, was giving all this stuff away to
Right.
to
And
to
that was
that. So
strange.
that's what they're majorly speaking towards. But he's right.
No, I'm not a fan. I mean, if you a crook, you need to get investigated and be prosecuted and see what happens.
No, I mean that's nothing that you
Yeah.
can investigate. It's the fact that he pushes for people not to use the government, but he uses the hell out of the government when it comes to low income housing. Like that's what I mean by people talking about how many taxes they pay and don't pay attention to people who have money about their tax burdens. Just don't listen to them.
Yeah, I mean, I try to pay attention to everything. I'm not necessarily trapped anywhere. I try to look at everything I can look at, honestly. But like we talked about before, everybody's using the government. We pay
Yes.
tax. We pay taxes into a system that we should be able to extract out of there and get things that we need to do to get done. To organize large amounts of capital to get problems resolved. Like I told you, I don't. That's where we are. I'm not going to sit here and play with you and fantasize about no government. I would slash the government by 50%, but that's not realistic, right? I would privatize much of this country,
So that
right?
way things can cost more. Like, dude, there is nothing that's been privatized. Paradox.
I'm listening.
Paradox. So let me say this. There is nothing that's been privatized that became cheaper. Okay. There is no person who privatized, like, okay, let's use an easy example that people can recognize. Let's say
Help
that
me.
you're in the downtown area and you didn't have to pay for parking before. The moment that shit was privatized by somebody, didn't parking go through the roof?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. When you privatize shit, it gets more expensive. So the only thing you have to do is fund the shit appropriately and make sure that money is actually dealt with appropriately and you won't have to worry about this shit. Right? Or else would you want to privatize so that way it could just cost more and probably
Yeah, I
not be as
mean,
effective?
I'm not smart enough, but I don't see that. I think that too much government is not a good thing. And when I look at other countries that have big government, be it a dictator, be it a communist government or a capitalist government, when I see a lot of government, I'm not 100% confident that they make the best decision, that it's the most efficient. That's all I'm saying.
But you
And
expect
when
for
I
private organizations to raise the prices.
and let me caveat a
Okay.
little bit. Give me a little
Okay.
room because I'm going to
All
give
right.
you a government. If I have a government in place and I'm using them to put in aggressive rules to stop monopolies, I would deal better with privatization. But of course, without any type of government oversight, I will concede that it's problematic, and we've seen examples in our country of that up until today. So
Yeah.
you're gonna need some regulations. As much as I may hate them, I just don't want to overregulate. That's all I was saying. I don't want to stifle businesses. I want to give some options out there. I want to create some competition. That's all.
I mean,
So
it's
I'm, so
not
I'm
going to be
not
true
saying do
competition.
away with
Like
do
Amazon and
away.
Apple is going to run the school system. So shit, that's who's going to run the shit.
Okay, all right. I was gonna say something.
It
That's
is.
gonna.
I mean, shit, you already got their phone systems and service with Comcast, Verizon,
Yeah,
Apple, or
yeah.
Amazon. That's who's probably going to run the entire school system with one curriculum.
I mean, how to make money in the school system? I ain't mad about it. What they're teaching now, I think, is a waste of time. So I'm not gonna be too mad about that, honestly. Because you
Uh,
prefer what you have now, right?
over Amazon running the school
Yeah,
system, probably,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to put a business mindset into a school system. That would definitely have kids thinking a very
Oh
different
no, no,
way.
no! Like you could do that on an individual household basis. You don't need to do that from the governmental basis. Most
But
people are
the
not
but the
business owners in this country, man.
but the
They're
kids
just
are
not.
going to school. They are being influenced. That's all I'm saying. We're not
Yeah.
turning that part off. So I don't want a school system teaching my child to rely on the government in that kind of way. So if it was privatized and I had corporations involved in in trying to give the kids more of a business, more of a technology mindset, I wouldn't necessarily be mad about that versus what they get now, which is scatterbrained and all over the place.
Yeah, I do agree with you because I went through that shit when I was going to college too to learn simple SQL shit that made you go through 7 programming
Uh huh.
languages to actually fucking get there. When I could have just been dealing with one program or assembly line code and just would have did that shit, but they made you go through all this bullshit to get something though. And this was a so-called technical school. They were
Hmm.
technical college at the time. It wasn't like community college of Aurora had far less technical shit, but social, know the whole ology shit, psychology,
Uh
sociology,
huh.
all this bullshit that ain't got nothing to do with me performing on a fucking job, but I had to take it anyway. That's why I switched from CCA to like different
Okay.
technical college, and then it was the other side of being completely stupid. It's like, okay, they taught you how to repair a computer, a printer, how to take it apart, blah blah blah,
Hmm.
and then it went into shit that it didn't need to go into, which is all these fucking programming languages. And some people just dropped the fuck out. They didn't even
It's
give a fuck.
difficult. Yeah, it gets hard when you get programming. I did a little bit of programming, so it does get challenging. I would say so. I would even say if you did a private public partnership in the school system where government is still involved, but we add a little bit of private industry into that mix. Because when these kids come out of school, if you're not working for the government, you're gonna be working for industry. So why
Yeah,
not
but these
already be
people are
not
not
if you're not gonna do
naturally.
entrepreneurship, why not already be geared up to know how to introduce yourself to those spaces?
Yeah, but these people are not being created for neither. Like that's where we're
Well,
at.
yeah, for
They're
neither.
not being
No,
created for neither one of them.
no, I agree. I mean, that's not happening now, but I know you said what you said, so I was just trying to see. You don't want Amazon there,
Hey,
but you don't have
listen.
an issue with you know whatever
Hey,
government state we live in, whatever state it is you're living
okay.
in.
Inquisitive Prince is right. And give it to a person who probably pays like $17,000 a month and fucking pre-pass fucking money each fucking month for all my trucks that go through Pennsylvania and fucking
Oof.
Chicago. You're right.
Mm,
This is what I mean by not using the fucking tax money right. The fucking toll roads are out of fucking control,
it
especially in
sure is.
Chicago and especially in Pennsylvania.
But that's a
Like
write off for you though, right? It doesn't affect you, right?
it does affect it does affect me, but what the
You know
fuck
how to
do you
use the
mean?
tax code. Stop playing. You probably have an issue with the tax code. You're benefiting.
No,
Shit.
but that's why the charges that I charge it actually incorporates that in it.
Oh,
But
okay.
for some
Okay.
people who just get their shelf load boards, that's not factored into it. So that's why they normally stay out of those areas. So
Right, because you could teach trucking to high schoolers, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I have to put it
Not
in form of a
not even
hustle and
not
make
even
it
an
look like
option.
we're ripping people off in order for most of these people to get it because they raise around these neighborhood and these hood fantasies and shit, and they can't absorb direct information unless it look like they're ripping somebody the fuck off, which is why I don't do it.
Oh, okay. Huh.
I mean, I used to give away $1 million plans on how to make it, but then people just kept remixing the shit and then expecting me to fix it after I gave them a specific plan to follow. People have a very hard time following direction, simple direction.
Starts in the household.
That's what I mean, man. Like you don't need no government based system to come in and do this shit. Only thing you have to do is educate your actual fucking people, and they will fucking be there.
Well, then how much government do we need then? Since you're on the left and you want all government, you want a socialist country. How much government do you want? Because if I can do it in my household and I can do it with my neighbors and do it with my local business partners, how much government do we really need then? Because it sounds
I
like
think a little
we
bit
already
more than
have
what
too
we
much
have
and it's
now.
inefficient. You
A
say we
little
need
bit
more
more
or
than what
less?
we have now. A little bit more than what we have now. Any
Okay. Wow.
regulations that these so-called billionaires are trying to cut, that means that you need more regulations in that area. Period.
Would you get rid of other parts of the government though?
Like what?
Board of
Give me an
Education,
example. No,
CDC, FDA,
no, no,
archives,
no,
IRS,
no,
CBP, FBI,
no,
DOJ,
no,
uh, Congress.
no.
What about lobbyists? What about lobby money and lobbyists?
Yeah. Lobby, yes. Like if you made like a more public funded election system, everything will be
Hmm.
able to work right. So that way people don't get their special interests funded like that, like corporations and shit. Like if you had a public election system, and fuck it, you get 3 ads. You don't get to bombard me with ads during the whole fucking season. Fuck you. You get three
Right.
ads, three ads during maybe 2 weeks before the election, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
What
publicly
about term?
funded
What about term
election.
limits?
No, I don't
No
believe
term
it.
limits.
For the Supreme Court, yes. Everybody else, not necessarily. Because then with term limits, you'll make the machine. Because people are just going to serve their one term and then they're going to be part of the machine. There would be literally no way to overturn a political machine by just having term limits. You make the political machine more
They
powerful
would.
than
They would. They wouldn't help out your state
not in my
if you
state.
got people. If you got folks up out of there.
Not in my state. I mean, shit, Colorado works fine. What are you talking about?
Mississippi.
Oh shit, Mississippi, dude, ain't nothing gonna help Mississippi but like building a 6-lane highway across the entire fucking state, all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. That's the only way. You gotta literally bring in 200 or 500,000 more people to replace the people in Mississippi to fix it. Yes.
But like you said, it's not broken. They like it that way. But I always think sometimes the term limits will help kind of refresh different Congresses around the country. I'm not, because I don't think even in the state house they can keep running.
Okay, so let's say you have term limits. Then the party chooses the person who's going to run. You're just going to have one singular thought process throughout the entire place. And as soon as the person runs, they're out. Guess where they're going to be at when they're out? They're going to be part of the party making platform.
Yeah, there are some rules people want to put in place now to kind of deal with some of that. You know, you got to wait 5 years before you work for a private industry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you can give people 3 or 4 terms. I'm not talking about just one term, obviously, but you can give people, 3, 4, 5 terms in the House, and then maybe one extra term in the Senate, and then flip it and get them up out of there and get some fresh blood in there. That's all I was thinking. You can kind of stagger all those things as well. Obviously, it won't all be at the same time. Of course.
Yeah, but the fresh blood thing, like the fresh blood is going to be the people being picked by the party.
Yeah, that's the system. But you can run candidates, but we're not politically active enough to even. Everybody obviously is so busy. It's very difficult, obviously, to find people to run. So you just rely on the system to pick people for you, of course, in most cases.
And that system you're going to remove from the individual personality to the corporate pick of the party. You're literally going to get less of what you want if you have this one issue and not in there shit. Trust me, I've looked at it, discussed it, debated it multiple times with actual sitting people and lost because I thought I had the best idea until they're like, no, you don't want the party. Like, you don't want Debbie Washington Schultz picking all the Democratic candidates all over the fucking country.
Especially doing it anyway, but
yeah, and this shit don't fucking work. How you get all these fucking corporate blue dog Democrats in there? Fucking shit up.
Yep. That's a fact.
So, is there a question you wanted to ask me?
No, man. That's all I got. I've been talking for 10 hours probably. Something like that.
Yeah, man. Like we just trying to reset the conversation around people who are actually conservatives and what they actually think and believe, no matter how right or wrong it is. And we had a whole conversation about 2.5 hours, and we didn't have to bring up black women not one fucking time.
Nah, that's not a part of my conversation in general. So.
We didn't have to do that. But at the end of the day, man, I do want to thank you for coming on, man. It's hard to have these conversations because, everybody's trying to get their shit off. And then you have like the major redirectors come on the conversations. All of a sudden, the original topic is not even being talked about anymore.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
Hard to stay on topic. That is a challenge, especially on the internet. Yeah,
because people want to get their shit off more than they want to be educated and actually move on to about certain something. So
yeah, like you said, I think in the real world, I mean, internet you can have a lot of fun on and just talk, but in the real world, it can be very difficult to do a lot of things. Like I said, I think a lot of people get frustrated over time because it is work and it is difficult. And if you have a very busy life and you really can't engage it the way you may even want to engage it, that tends to be, I think, a lot of people's frustration about whatever it is going on in life. Because as this system changes and you're not prepared for the change, I think it does make people, very angry, very upset because, it can feel like the world is leaving you behind in some cases.
And, I mean, as they should feel that way, because that's exactly what's happening. So what they want
Yeah,
to do is redirect this shit on immigrants and other people who ain't got
right.
nothing to do with why they're
So you
fucking back.
obfuscate. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
another thing that don't work.
Yeah,
So
you have to be engaged. You have to pick your poison. I think you have to figure out where you can be most comfortable at and move with. And if you want to move with that group. And again, very rich people, large groups of people have tried to move things in certain ways, and they failed at it, but they did at least try. The two-party system with the multiple parties within those systems are very powerful, very connected, and they're very dug in. And so a lot of times, as a regular person, generally speaking, unless you have some amazing skills to convince a lot of people to join some random thing that you're doing, you tend to fall into one of those groups, and then you move from that space. Because
yeah,
to
but a lot of
me,
people are
if
just
you're
not they're not set up for long term this shit. They think they're gonna run into this shit like a heist, get what they want, and that shit's gonna
it's
be
very
over.
slow, it's a very slow process. And as our government unfortunately gets bigger and bigger, I'd argue it's going to be much, much more challenging because there's a lot of powerful people. And that's why I think as a regular person, you get frustrated. As a very powerful people are making a lot of big moves, which change a lot of things in our country. And like I told you before, it can be challenging because, for example, very simple example, if the military, or not the military, people who run the military may have aspirations to do things, and they can leverage certain things to get people put in office to get what they want. Now, me as a conservative, you as a liberal, as individuals, or even as a group, those things you're not going to stop. People, matter of fact, when we went into Iraq, if you watch that process, right?
Yeah, I was part of it.
I watched people get pulled. People who have very left leaning beliefs should have burnt this country down to stop that war from happening. But they
Look,
got pulled, they got convinced, they got conditioned, they used fear. And so very smart people, very connected people, they bent the knee to it and they went with the process. Some of them got punished politically after the fact, but
yes,
in
they
that
did.
moment though, they had to make a decision. And as a system that's designed around political representation, those are some of the things that you have to absorb. People are not being accountable for their vote. People are not being accountable for not participating. People are not being accountable who they put in positions. Because when they make those decisions, they're representing you. And you have to accept that. But what happens is in this country, because of, I would say, freedom for the most part, is that you can play that game and act like you wasn't a part of it. But if you voted and supported, then you supported the war. You supported the war spending, the blank check. You have to be accountable for that as an individual. A lot of times online, when people are talking, sometimes I'm listening. I'm like, but you're not being accountable.
And we had lower
You,
diesel prices during two fucking oil wars too. Like,
I
and
know.
make that shit make sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. XC, thank you for the 4.99 super chat. This is Paradox, one half of the DC Codebreaker show. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we get off of this live stream, Mr. Paradox?
No, that's pretty much it. Like again, I said I appreciate coming on the Man of Tomorrow's program. Appreciate the everybody in the comments, commenting, of course, and the donations. And I was glad to be here.
Yes. Wait. Before you go, what do you have to say about people who encourage black men not to vote? Like, I mean, that's some Tariq Nasheed shit. But
Yeah, I listen to it all the time. I hear them all the time.
but
I
but it's
think
already people who's not voting, threatening to not vote.
um
I don't get it. I don't fucking get
I
it.
would well I would say if from Tariq, I don't have a lot. I have some issues with him, but everyone gets to speak their mind about whatever.
Oh wait.
Um,
Somebody wants to come out. Will you want to have a panel? You can stay for a couple minutes for
yeah,
that.
I'm here, man. I'm here.
All right. Well, hold on a second. Let me drop the link because people
But
who
I
are
think,
threatening not to vote who
uh-huh.
already benefit off politically disengaged people, I think that shit is hilarious.
I mean, you can live your life in this country and not participate, and you'll be fine. Either way it goes, you just work the system the way you can. So that's one thing. But I would never encourage anybody to not vote.
Me neither.
Tariq is in a very bad situation because you have nowhere to go.
Nowhere
And
else
so
to go.
because you don't want to be a man and take a political position, you want to play sort of this gray area game with people, you're causing confusion. Because I'm gonna tell you, it's very difficult, like I just said just 10 seconds ago, it is very difficult to align yourself with party systems and all the people who are involved in those systems as a regular person and commit yourself to it. And it's so many negatives that come with it. And someone like him can manipulate a situation in a way to where he pulls you out of politics, right? But you don't really know who he is. You don't know his politics. You don't know what he gets, tax breaks, cuts, deals that he makes with the Hollywood executives that we never hear about. Is why he get a lot of his movies made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't really know that person. You just seeing a character on the internet. So I
He
have
could literally get paid to disincentivize people to vote, and nobody would know.
that's my whole point with a lot of internet people. I don't know who nobody's working for because when you're saying some things, it doesn't make any sense. You want people to be politically engaged. If you are mad at the Democrats for not giving you reparations, or you're trying to hold your vote to make them give you reparations, and that's your position, I won't fight it
That's your
necessarily.
choice.
But
Oh
I don't
man.
know if I just don't know if he's smart enough, and I could be wrong. He's a pretty smart dude. I don't know if he's smart enough to understand what he's doing, any kind of implications that come from him starting that process. You know, if you're not going to create a party, if you're not going to organize because you really don't have to not vote. That's the weird part.
Yeah, that's crazy.
You have a large audience. You can figure out how to crowdfund. But you do it anyway for your movies and stuff. And you can create you a super PAC, and figure out ways to put pressure on the Democrats to do what you want. To get yourself in those rooms and say that I have this group of people, they gave me millions of dollars. I'm here and I'm requesting these things. But to play this weird anti-American game in the black world bothers me to no end because there are no options on a large scale that anyone's going to move on about maybe living somewhere else outside of the country, whatever. Obviously, no one's doing that. That's a ridiculous conversation. We don't even have to go down that conversation. But he has to be much smarter with what he's trying to do. And not voting is like I told you, I can't even process that. My mind can't handle that information, honestly. You have to figure out a way to get that done. And not voting isn't the answer because he's not really giving you anything else besides that, right? He's not giving me anything
I
else
think that
besides
shit's
that.
crazy, man. People who fund and crowdsource shit are telling people not to
He should just
participate
say
in the
he's a
political
Republican, what
system.
he should say.
No. But
Say he's a
but it is
Republican. You hate the
Republican
Democrats
interference.
so much.
I mean, but it is Republican-based interference to tell people not to participate in a system that already does not represent you. It is literal 100% Republican shit. But
I'm
we
trying
got
to figure out,
Citizen
but who?
Lou.
Oh, okay, I'm about to say who else says that though. I don't even know anybody who even. I'm trying to think of anybody in this country who says don't vote.
Nick
I mean, just
Cannon.
across the board.
Nick Cannon.
Oh, I mean,
Really?
non-black.
Oh no, I'm okay. Nobody says that. No,
I'm just
nobody says
trying to
that. Oh
think of anybody who's very anti, like people who are very, very anti-government. I'm not totally sure if they broadcast it on the internet. I know you have groups of people who don't vote.
no. You don't see the Oath Keepers telling people not to vote.
Yeah,
They're
Oath Keeper. Yeah,
anti-government.
those spaces. Yeah.
Evangelical Christians telling people to stay the fuck home. You don't hear that shit.
The only time you saw that, I take that back. The only time you saw that is when Trump said the election was rigged
Yeah.
and he told people to stay home in Georgia,
Yeah.
and Warnock won in 2020.
That was probably the number one mistake that nobody brings up is telling folks to vote on one day when you had 3 months to vote.
No, he told people not. No, I'm talking about the runoff after
Wow!
after
That's
the
even
runoff
worse.
where Loeffler and what's his name had to go and do a runoff. And I think it was Purdue. They were like, Trump told them, "Hey, the system is rigged," so his people didn't come out to vote. Not like they should have. He said it was rigged, and that hurt him.
No, yeah, I think that hurt him in the general too, though. Both.
All right, we got Citizen Lou, Renaissance Man, and the Inquisitive Prince on. So, who wants to ask that question or address their issue first?
Oh yeah, I got a question, Paradox. What led you? Are you there, Paradox?
I'm here.
So, what led you to kind of want billionaires not to pay taxes and everything should be privatized? What led you to that?
Oh, I didn't say not pay tax. I was just trying to get. I was just asking MOT more of a question of understanding, trying to understand at least a little bit, as much as I look at stuff when it comes to taxes. At least from the left talks about it obviously more than the right, but just trying to figure out why across the board, really up and down, rich and poor, why is that? Why are those things so important? I think for it to be progressive or whatever, to be able to wealth, access people's wealth, or when they move money around, to be able to tax it, to sort of be able to move the money around the system or transfer wealth, I guess is what they say. I was really
But
trying to get more of an understanding than taking a position about
oh,
billionaires
okay,
not
I
paying
got you. I
taxes.
got
I
you.
was talking about maybe nobody should pay taxes, and what does that really look like, just in general. You can tax goods and services, maybe find some other ways to tax, but let people keep their income, their federal income taxes to themselves.
We'll probably look like India.
And maybe it's possible. I don't know. I don't
Yeah,
know. Like I told you,
not
I
paying for
don't know.
infrastructure.
I've
Kind of.
I've heard lots of examples. I've heard lots of reasons why. It was just more of a question because if you if you if you cut out federal taxes and you drain the federal government, would our country collapse? Are they fixing infrastructure now? Are they fixing schools now? Are they making sure our water is clean now? I don't. You know what I'm saying? I don't. It's like on one hand you're saying that the country's crumbling, but we're paying more and more taxes. And like I think MOT was saying that, and I guess only a certain percentage of people pay all the taxes anyway, which obviously I've heard that before as well. I just don't know. Should you give people their money back? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if
Okay,
more
I
federal
thought.
government
Okay,
is a good thing or not.
okay. Well, I thought you were making a point. I didn't know you were asking. I guess I was behind on that. Yeah. Go ahead, Prince. I'll go ahead and pass it to you.
All right, Prince. Where's the Prince? All right, man. We'll come back to Inquisitive Prince. Go ahead, Renaissance man. What the fuck?
He
Yeah,
might be on mute. I don't
He
know.
might have
yeah, man,
stepped.
can y'all hear
Yeah, the Renaissance might have
me?
stepped away. Okay. Let me just follow up with this then. So I did hear you say this. You said everything should be privatized, right? Now you did say that. I
Uh,
did hear that correctly, right?
yes. It was more of in a question form of
Man, come
should
on,
we?
Paradox, stand on it, bro. I stand on the point.
What are you talking about?
I could have. You said we should everything
And
privatized. I
I
thought.
told and if you heard the whole thing, I told MOT maybe it should be a private public, even with education system. Maybe it should be private public because he pushed back on it. And I said it could be a private public situation because he said he didn't want Amazon running. And I said maybe Amazon should run it. Maybe
Okay.
we should privatize. Maybe we should privatize the whole school system.
All right.
So what is what you want me to explain why you should privatize it?
No, I'm just trying to understand what would make somebody want to privatize everything. You know, like private.
I mean, I'm living in America, and so just naturally, if I go to my school system, I look at the school systems, and I wonder why 50% of the kids can't get past sixth grade reading and math, and it's ran by the government. And then I ask, what would be some of the alternatives? Why wouldn't privatization be an option when I know kids who go to private school and I see the outcome? I
Well, I
don't. So
mean,
what am I missing in that conversation?
reading. They have all these different programs throughout school. I mean, you got to take advantage of them. I mean, I was reading at like 11th grade level when I was in like the seventh grade. I mean, that's just. I mean, you just have to just do it. You got to just read. I mean, that's not a. I think that's a governmental issue, right? I mean, most
Because
of the
of us go to
private
public
school,
schools, don't
because
we?
the private school they can discriminate, right? Like I mean, so everything. I mean, what then,
They
right?
don't they don't discriminate in public schools.
No, public schools have to
But
take everybody. Public schools can't turn
yeah,
anybody.
they may take everybody, but are they teaching the black kids? Are they making the black kids competitive in this space?
It's the same. It's the same curriculum. Everybody has the same curriculum. Now, private student kids. I know, like when I went to school, I know the private kids. They were like boasting about their ACT scores. They had like an average 24 of people who graduated. But that's just because they do the tutoring and all that. I mean, that's not necessarily. I mean, they're kids that come from money per se. So I mean, that's just. I mean, I already gonna have the resources to do stuff like that. But I mean, not
So
all
you
public
saying
schools are
our
just.
public school? You saying that the average public school in this country, or public schools that are in poor areas, are producing children that
No,
can make it into college, and
no,
children that
you moved the
are going.
goalpost. I was talking about no. We were talking about they can't discriminate, right? And you asked me,
Well, I
are they
wasn't
teaching
focusing
this?
on the discrimination. I was focusing on the
No,
outcomes
I brought
where we
up
are
discrimination because the
where we
private,
are
no,
right
the
now.
private schools can. No, I'm saying you want it to be private. Private schools can discriminate, right?
But if you privatize a school and give kids the options, take the government money that you're putting in public schools and giving the kids the money to be able to go to private schools and give them a choice, and you're saying they're gonna have to deal with discrimination. We would deal with discrimination anyway. So I don't.
No,
We
I'm saying no.
we
What I
navigate those
mean
waters anyway,
enrollment.
don't we?
No, I mean they won't let you in the schools. Paradox. It's not discrimination in that. I'm talking about the school won't even let you in. Is what I'm saying. Private schools are allowed to not take your kid.
Right. But if we're
Public
building
schools don't have that. Public schools have to take your kid.
okay. So are you saying that public schools are educating the kids? That's what your position is?
Yes. Yes.
That our kids who come through public schools are competitive and can get into college, as an example, generally speaking?
Yeah, the majority of kids go to public school in this country who go to college, correct? Private schools are not. I mean,
the majority would have to.
Well, a percentage of kids get into colleges, but I was under the impression, maybe I'm wrong, is that when I look at some of the numbers, a lot of these kids aren't up to snuff. They're not
yeah, I mean,
at the
yeah,
level that they need to be. And that's one of the major complaints is that I
but
need to get my kids out of school. That's why people
but
take their kids and work 3 jobs to put their kids in private school, because the schools got too much violence, too much fighting. The teachers are undereducated or brand new teachers
well,
in some cases who don't really
it's
know
a
how to teach.
it's a
Um,
it's a funding issue. You
um,
got a funding issue. Like basically, I think you're looking at private schools and thinking that they're necessarily like it's just because they're private. It's because I would argue like concentration of wealthy people, and like Lou said, they can discriminate because there are plenty of private schools that are horrible that like the kids
okay.
actually do worse
Yeah,
in.
I heard that about charter schools and private schools. I've heard that
Yeah,
before. Yeah.
that actually do worse than. The other thing I was gonna on the education, like I look
But
at
I just want to be clear is that everybody is saying that the public school system in America is operating correctly.
no, I don't think it's operating correctly.
That
No,
we're producing kids that can compete on the global scale.
No,
That's what y'all are telling me
I'll say,
right now.
I will say this. Yes, billionaires like Bill Gates investing and pushing Common Core in public schools is a problem. Yes.
no.
Yes.
And I was gonna say too, Paradox, like to your point of billionaires building schools. I mean, you have Trump University, and we see what that did.
You
Like,
gonna do that to
I,
me?
I mean, here's the thing: like, just because you're a billionaire, that doesn't mean you need to go and like build a school. And then, like, when you look at just the history of like corporate towns and all of that, that just has a potential for way too much abuse. Like, let educators educate. Give them the resources that they need because a lot of our schools are funded through property taxes. And I
All
don't
right.
even think it necessarily has to be like a testing craze either, because you've got places like Finland and I believe it's Finland and maybe it's Germany. Like they start school later than the United States, they do less homework and they still score higher in math and science than we do. So like it's not even this whole we got to squeeze blood from a turnip type of deal to get these kids to learn. It's the methods and the culture. I'd argue a lot of things going into that. How we educate.
I'm still trying to process that public schools don't discriminate. When I think about the suspension rate for black kids, how black kids are treated, how they get kicked out of school, how they get
No,
put in
they
secondary schools,
No,
how so
no.
no
many
no no
black
no.
boys get put
So
into special ed schools. What am
you're
I
not
missing on the
understanding.
discrimination part?
No,
You
no,
talking
no.
about
You're not.
if we fund and build private
You get
schools to
Gallagher. You get Gallagher. You said you didn't understand, and you're not letting us explain it.
yeah,
So
you just told me they're going to discriminate and they're not going to let kids in there. But if
you're
we're
not okay.
building,
So a private school can not enroll your child. You get that paradox?
yes, I
Okay,
got you.
that's okay. Public school cannot. Public school has to take your student, has to take your
Yes, I
child.
get that. I get
Okay,
that. Yeah.
that's what we're talking about discrimination. That's what we're talking about.
Okay, I got you. I got you.
Now all this other stuff, prejudice from teachers and stuff like that, that's a whole other thing. But they're still in the school. I mean, that's.
Well, until they get kicked out, but I got you. In
I mean,
general,
But
they're
that's
gonna make it. They're gonna get pushed through the school system. I got you.
but that's how you can make your scores look better as well too. Like if I get to basically do, I mean, this is what elite institutions do. Like they basically skim off the top. Like this is what Harvard does. Like there's an article talking about how basically like more black physicists come out of like Xavier than Harvard, but that's because Harvard literally says, okay, if you're in the top 10% of like, physics majors, we want to push you through, and then we'll pretty much try to weed everyone else out. The same thing as how these like private schools and charter schools work is, hey, we'll take the most talented students and take them, and then they'll say, oh, we have really talented test scores, and then the bottom 90% will say, okay, they go to public school, and then it'll make it look like, well, the public school is just completely garbage, and the private school is just a superior model.
Yes, they do that. I agree.
Hey, MOT, are you there now? I mean,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
hear you now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just I just keep getting phone calls, keep knocking me off.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Because they were saying they couldn't hear you in the chat.
Yeah. Before, yeah. Paradox, you addressed a question on the screen from Troopers I Know It.
I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm not. Look, let me go look at it.
No, it's cool. I can read it to you.
Okay.
All right. They want to privatize schools because they have been subverted by far-right propaganda, which is disseminated by elite or right plutocracy that works to suppress the middle class. Do you agree with that statement or not from private school? Regardless of how they perform, do you agree with that statement or disagree?
That they're being, what did he say? They're being suppressed?
No, subverted.
Subverted is not about the elite to right. Photography that works. That's possible. I don't know. I had to think about that.
I mean, here's the thing. I think anything that is privatized in America, or there's a push to take it from public to private, is really just trying to get the black folks out. I really think that's.
Yeah. Next thing you know, they can discriminate, which is what conservatives always want. Doesn't matter whether it's religion or anything else. People who they don't like, they want to discriminate against. Let's keep it real. That's what they want, right? They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in the Constitution. I'll talk about most of the dominant society conservatives, especially from the South. They do not believe in the Constitution at all. They use that shit to hold you up, hold it up as a human shield. Well, other than that, they do not believe in it.
All right, so you would say more federal funding to the school system because they're working. They just need more money.
No, it's just that it needs to be disseminated appropriately for a specific outcome. Right now, the outcome is just to shoot these people through the school. Don't give a shit about how they perform in life outside.
That's not what your cohorts just said.
Wait, what?
They said they're getting the same education. Everything is the same. It's just as good as any other school. They're running schemes with the private schools, and the public schools are working and producing these scientists and engineers. You didn't say that?
See now you're. Come on, now you been. Come on, right? You really, bro? I said that.
That's how I interpret it.
No, I
interpreted what I said.
I extrapolated. I expanded on what you said because you're telling me that the private school is a bad idea. I was just speaking generally about if the could you privatize the school system and just see what I was just saying to see what happens. Can you put more pressure on teachers? Can you make it more competitive to compete? That's all I'm saying. I'm not
yeah, but you don't need to privatize to do all this thing.
Okay, I got you. But we've been going but we've been in these schools, the people on this call, I'm thinking we've been around these school systems for at least 40 years. MOT is taking a hard position on outcome. But then you're backing up systems that do the opposite of that. Unless I could be totally off on this. Maybe we are just as competitive as schools in Korea. I don't know.
No, I'm saying
maybe we're just as aggressive and we're producing all this outcome, because if we were producing what you're saying we're produced, you wouldn't have what you have unless I'm mistaken.
No, paradox. But I'm saying that you've got to delineate between, like, you can't just say blanket public schools, because there are plenty of public schools that were outperforming private schools.
I live around some of the top public schools in the country.
Okay.
So I'm already aware of that, and I'm also around some of the top private schools in the country. I'm talking to the people. I'm looking at outcomes. I have relationships with these people. I was just looking at it just from a situation where, because I know it's not just the school; it's also going to be the household. I grasped all of the concepts of parents
I get that. Okay. I get that. I'm saying, but like, if you look at a school like a Thomas Edison in Virginia, like that's one of the top, one of the top public schools in the nation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm saying that, okay, it may not be good as like Georgetown Prep,
right?
But those are two of like the top schools in the nation. And if you take like Thomas Edison and compare it to like a random private school in like a small town
Right.
somewhere else, or even a
Right.
private school in a major city outside of
That's
DC,
true.
like that school will actually perform better. So I think
Yeah.
it's relative.
Yeah. 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 And I don't, like I told you, like I was telling MOT, you know, I do have a hard time understanding how some public schools in a wealthy county is producing more success, and how in other counties where you have wealth, you're still not seeing that. And so it's pushing people to put their kids in a private school. Not talking about even rich people, people who are working working two jobs or more to try to push their kid into private for a reason. If people are pushing their kids into private school, if people are talking about charter schools or, you know, giving me the money to make my own choice, and it resonates, I'm just saying that is saying something about the school system.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I don't even think it's a school system, because my understanding is the biggest predictor of child success in the school, my understanding, is parental involvement.
Parental involvement, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the fact that it's sort of a lurking variable in the sense of, oh, these private schools perform well. Look at what type of parent is going to put their kids in private school. I mean, a parent who doesn't, is kind of a, a 50-50 or, kind of just a moderate parent is probably not going to go spend what, $20,000, $30,000 a year on a child's education. So I think there's some of that just, tips the bias.
I did caveat that I get that there is going to be different circumstances, and if you are a single parent and you're struggling and you're busy, and you put your kid into a private school, would you get no different of an outcome, because you're not going to be there as much for the kid when they're not in school, when it comes to behavior and in other aspects,
or just like resources. Like, even if your kid, like,
and resources.
You may not be able to get your kid a tutor because you can't afford it. You're just like, I'm spending all the money to get you to school.
Yeah. Now, if it's private, would there be a way to increase funding to make sure you have those things and still hold schools responsible? I don't know, because if you're getting government money to help you go to private schools, am I putting myself in the same trap? It's just me talking back to myself, of course.
Well, the reason I say this too is I've lived in Alabama. They've tried this. Like, they passed a bill, like, basically they gave like a tax break and basically said, hey, if your kid goes to a failing school, basically we'll give you a tax break to send them to a performing private school. We'll give you government money.
Okay.
I mean, it really hasn't done a ton, because you have these private schools that will pop up that will be like, religious schools.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to teach. They want to teach creationism. Things like that, and people get inferior education. So it's a lot of things that go into it. Because I believe it's in New Orleans. The New Orleans public schools all got turned to charter, I believe, after Katrina, and there's not much outcome as far as difference.
And that's where me and MOT went, and that's why I brought up private public, where maybe if you bring in more private businesses and more of those that mindset, and they work together, that might produce a better outcome. I don't know.
I mean, I just don't see why would business be the answer to education?
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
You don't, but you believe in business, don't you, MOT? What do you mean you don't understand that?
I mean, but infusing
some business-minded people may be a bad thing, but it may not.
No, but what I'm saying is,
giving kids more of a broad perspective of the world, it might not work. I'm just spitballing at the end of the day.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, let me just give my perspective on it. If you bring private people in there, this shit's going to get hella expensive, and it's probably not going to produce a better outcome, because right now, the money we spend now, we don't get an outcome out of it. I don't see how bringing private people in here, it's going to skyrocket the price and shit.
I think he cut out.
Yeah.
He might be still getting phone calls.
No, but I was going to say to his point, I think you run into the prospect of monetization. I mean, that's kind of already what's happened with you could argue at the collegiate level with like federal loans and things like that, or like private lenders, is that these people who operate businesses are at the end of the day profit driven, and dollar signs start lighting up of, well, how can I make money out of this venture versus the purpose of this is not to make money. That's why it's a nonprofit. Like, It's a different mindset.
Mm.
And I think it's like I said, and I think it's kind of dangerous because you had corporate towns before as well.
You have what again?
Corporate towns.
Oh yeah, corporate towns, especially during like the mining era. Oh yeah, you had a lot of corporate towns.
Wasn't Ford when they kind of like a corporate town in Detroit? And they have a couple of those.
Not quite. I don't think Detroit fell on that, but definitely those mining towns, places like Kentucky, Ohio,
Mining towns. Yeah.
where like the
Yeah,
mine
mining towns.
pretty much own like the school, the store, the housing, everything.
Oh, yeah, that's different. Okay, yeah, that's different. I see what you're saying. Okay. I know. I thought you meant like I didn't even know that. Where the mining schools and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's kind of what Elon Musk is trying to do in Texas. Like with his old battery factory down there, he bought up a bunch of land that was talking about like trying to build a town. Like people were celebrating. I'm like, y'all must.
That's right.
I'm like, y'all must not pay attention to history.
No.
Yeah, he wants to do what they did on that Simpsons episode.
That or I think it's what's called the Battle of like Bear Mountain or something like that. Yeah.
So Paradox, you're a conservative? Is that what this? I mean, I don't know. Cause I remember we talked with another conservative. He kind of sound leftist. He sounded more leftist than he did conservative. Just am I? So you conservative?
Yep. For years, decades.
What
I have conservative leanings, conservative
Have you ever
lifestyle.
voted for a Democrat?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, really? Who?
Judged by
I won't say, but yes, I voted for Democrats. I voted for Republicans.
Did you
I
vote
voted
for Obama?
He sound like a millennial, so he voted for Obama.
You said, did I vote for who?
Obama.
I said you sound like you around my age.
I was glad that he ran and he got support.
Well, how old do you feel about?
But I'm in my 40s.
Oh, okay. I thought you was younger.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you guys supported him and ran. You
weren't old
part
enough
of that situation.
Wait, you weren't old enough to vote for Reagan, did you?
No.
Wait, are you saying you didn't, or were you old enough to?
No, I wasn't old enough to. No, did not vote for Reagan. No. but I voted for a couple of Democrats, locally and for some reasons, and yeah. So, but no, I'm not really a fan of the Democratic Party. But if they sell it to me, I could obviously jump out there and vote for them. I try to vote my interest when I can. But some of the things I just like I said, I don't it's just difficult. I put it that way.
I mean,
it's difficult.
Area, man. There ain't no way you can be you can have a conservative in that area, can you?
Well, yeah. It's a struggle all the time.
Nah, you have a liberal Republican. Like I mean,
we've had Republican. We just had a Republican governor actually. But
you're talking about Hogan.
Yeah, and before that, we had another one. I can't think of his name right now.
I mean, but he's not a Trump Republican. Like that's
no. Trump is something different altogether. But yeah.
All the way different.
Yeah, I don't think Trump is a. I know he ran as a Republican, but I don't think he's really a Republican now. He tapped into something and ran for office, but I'm not sure if he's ever been a Republican before. But he's definitely an opportunist. That's for sure.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. I wanted to hear what Inquisitor Prince had to say, man. I wonder why he jumped off.
Yeah, he didn't say anything.
But there was a couple times today I tried to jump on DC panel and the shit just said no connection. As soon as I was in the background, obviously, but as soon as I hit the StreamYard link, it would tell me no connection. My internet would turn the fuck off. I'm like, man, what kind of stupid shit is this, man? Y'all make so much money from this. obvious application that won't even fix the simplistic problems with it, man. That shit really gets on my nerves. So with that
Yeah,
said,
Yeah, we're gonna get up out of here.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Timothy. Salute, man. Y'all have a good day.
All right, cool. Renaissance, got anything else before we get up out of here?
No. Thank you, Paradox, for the question and answer, as well as the great discussion on your panel earlier today. So
yeah, we appreciate you.
All right, cool, man. Well, thanks for coming through, Paradox, man. It's coming
No,
through,
I
man. We're gonna have
appreciate
to
it.
do this again at some other time. Start talking about some very specific issues and have a panel through, like, just having like more mature discussions and just leave the relation talk shit with the people who can't get past it. No, just leave them out there, man. Just leave them out there. Or leave them in the
Yeah,
first grade. No, don't be trying to bring people with you, drag, kicking and screaming. But also don't let the motherfucker tell you about how they're not gonna vote, so that way you end up answering questions to people who's not invested or involved in the political system. That's
no,
all I'm
that is a
on.
fact.
You know what? If you're in the middle, you don't know what the fuck is going on, or you just waiting on a personal press conference, you should be left out of every conversation politically. Period.
I agree with you on that. Definitely want to be, like you said, you definitely want to be focused on things that's going to move you forward, and really explore what's really going on and trying to get access to more resources, not worrying about some of that other stuff that's really a distraction more than anything.
No, it is, because if you're not going to take any action, you're going to need a lot of distracting to distract you from everything that's going on in society. You're going to need 24 hours of this shit. Literally 24 hours of fucking distraction, because you can't focus on what's important. And that stuff just isn't here. It ruins your whole entire life and outlook. I'm just trying to get people to let them know that, hey, man, this shit ain't getting any better. You better move on while you can, or while you have a choice to move on. So,
Absolutely.
all right, cool, man. Let me get up out of here and get back on the road, man. I want to thank you guys for coming through. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out. Next week is hopefully Mr. Research, so that way we can have him on for the actual Black conservative discussions. Thanks for coming on, Paradox, man. You have a really nice day.
You too. All right, man.
All right, bye.